Hey everybody, I am Serge, aka Blackroom Photo, if you're familiar with my photography, and this is my new venture, an interview series that I'm calling Blackroom Secrets. This is the Black Room, aka my basement, and we're going to start off tonight with my old friend Jeff, aka MetalMadness66. Hey Jeff.
Hey man, what's up, dude? How you doing?
All right.
So we finally the peer pressure got to you, didn't it?
Yeah. So Jeff is not only a friend, but he is the reason I'm doing this because he, a year ago, pulled me, or about a year ago, maybe
Oh
some months
yeah,
ago,
right.
invited me to his own streams. So Jeff has a YouTube channel under that same name, MetalMadness66, where he does mostly music discussions, some deep dives into bands. I've guested on some of those. If you like music, especially metal, I'd highly recommend checking it out.
And Prague, don't forget Prague, man.
Well, in Prague, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, he's your tastes are fairly varied. I'll admit that,
Yeah, I got a wide palette, I would say. Yes,
which
we'll get
is
into
one of the
that.
reasons we get along. We in fact we met through music years ago. In what,
99,
1999? Yeah,
May of 99. Yeah.
yeah. Back then, I was a huge fan of Porcupine Tree, which is a British prog-ish band. Um, and they were on their first proper tour in America. And drove down to Baltimore to see them um, do a gig with Gong,
Yeah,
um,
right.
which I don't know how many of you would have heard of that band.
Probably no
Um,
one.
yeah. And then, Jeff, why don't you describe how we met?
Yeah, we were in Wheaton, Maryland, which is Silver Springs area, and to be very blunt here, I'm pretty sure I learned about the actual Porcupine Tree gig because of your website, which was PT Fans North America or PTFans.com. What was it again?
Yeah,
Yeah.
pt-fans.com. So that was
Okay.
back before PT had an official site.
Yeah.
I threw one up while in college, and
Yeah.
that's
Surge
how I
was
got it.
this. You were the second official real website out there. The first one being Didier's over in the Netherlands, but yours was the real one, man. I looked at it as the when I found it through Fish's website, because Steven was producing Fish's Sunset on Empires album, and I'm like, who is this Steven dude, man? He plays guitars, he plays drums, he produces. This guy's pretty talented. And at that point, Steve had a very rudimentary website that was pretty. Now, in looking back, it was pretty basic, pretty lame. Your website was even better than that, and I'm 99% sure you had some tour dates listed on there, and that's where I found out about the Wheaton, Maryland show at the Phantasmagoria. And it was May. I remember it was May of '99, and I came down and I parked. I remember parking down from the venue, and this dude with super long gray hair and a purple velvet suit walks by my car. I'm like, what the fuck was that? It was David Allen, the main guy behind Gong, because later I saw him up on stage tuning and whatnot. So, long story short, I walk into this place, and it was part used CD cassette place with a stage in the back corner and a fucking fry cook burger joint inside the place as well. And I go in to get my ticket because I didn't even have a ticket. I grab the ticket and I'm in there and I see the guys in the band and I briefly say hello to them. And then when I go out to get into line, I don't see, you see me, and I'm wearing a Frontline Assembly shirt.
Yeah.
And I somehow our eyes met. It was love at first sight. Now it was. I'm
It was
walking,
love
and
at
you're like,
first sight.
"Yeah," you're like, "Dude, Frontline Assembly," and I'm like, "Yo, man, what's up?" And you were with Winston. I remember that. And
Yeah.
I believe you.
Who I do hope to have on this sometime later. Well,
Oh, for sure.
on a
Um,
different episode.
um, the yeah. So you're like, "Hey, man, we get to talk in Frontline and Porcupine Tree." And you're like, dude, just jump in line. Because it wasn't maybe like 40, 35 people in line or something like that. It wasn't a lot. And actually, this was after, no, how was it? We got, well, it's semantics here. We got in line, but we also ended up at a restaurant across the street a little bit later, didn't we?
Yeah, there's some. I think it was before the show. I mean,
It
because we got
was.
there early.
You're right. And do you remember who? Do you remember who walked by us? Big furry, hairy dude, Cosmic Ken. Remember Cosmic Ken?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, man. He walks by and he was
character.
yelling at him. Yeah, he was a character. So yeah, that's where we met, and I don't remember if we exchanged emails or phone numbers. I can't remember what the deal was at that point in time as far as, cell phones. I don't know if I had a cell phone then. I think I might have, like one of those ones that's, 14 inches long and looks like it's in a episode of Starsky and Hutch from the 70s or something. But yeah, man. So we got in touch. I think you probably gave me your website, and I'm like, dude, I think that's how I found out about the show. And from there, I can't remember the next time we connected. To be blunt, I'm old, man. I'm old as dirt here. But
my memory is not that great either. But it was definitely, we continued to basically interact through the PT community, community.
Well, PT Trans probably was where we started talking more, or you told me about PT Trans. I can't remember. Long story short, we started interacting a lot, and before long, man, we were going to, I was coming up to New York to hit shows. You'd come down to Philly. I mean, dude, if you think about it, man, I've probably been to more shows with you than anyone else in my life. I mean, PT, how many times? Who knows? But we've been to Gary Newman, we've been to Dream Theater, we've been to Opeth, it's got to be 20 or 25 or 30 shows now, I would think.
Yeah,
pretty easily.
I'm sure it's up there. Yeah. So one of the reasons I think Jeff and I got along well is we're both pretty passionate about music, and Jeff, I think, has been to more shows than anyone I know. If you were to estimate how many shows you've seen in your life, what would you put that?
Well, I'll be 56 in March. My very first show I went to was Kiss in 1979 at the Sam Houston Coliseum. I'm sorry, it was at the Houston Summit where the Rockets played. October 79 for the Dynasty Tour. My second show was Rush at the Sam Houston Coliseum in February of 1980. I would say I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 shows, maybe. Probably get all bands combined, and that's including maybe weird shit I saw when I was a kid when I went with my dad to see Maynard Ferguson, the trumpet player at E-Town High School, or Chuck Mangione or something like that. I mean, I've been to a shitload of shows, and believe me, my bank account shows it because I'm poor as fuck. So but yeah, man. We've done a lot together, man, and it's been. Shit. We flew out to fucking California and did some runs with PT. We've, been all over the tri-state area. In Jersey, Baltimore, New York, and Pennsylvania. We've been to a shitload of shows. So, and I think the other reason we get along so well is you're very anathema to me in terms of personality. You're low key, pretty chilled, pretty in control. I'm a psychopath. Just kidding. But I'm wired, man. I'm like wired. And a lot of that is because, I'm a highly excitable, anxious person, which we may get into here in a bit. But that's why people either really dig being around me or they really don't dig being around me. And that's okay. I get it. I'm pretty amped. Usually it's generally positive, but when that ampage is negative, man, I can be a real fucking dick to be around. I get that. I don't even like myself sometimes when I'm in that aggro, somebody's aggravated me and I'm ready to go after somebody. So I get it, But I think you and I, we're kind of yin and yang.
And God forbid you need a bathroom.
Oh, what was that? Remind me.
Oh, just thinking of the various times we would be driving to New York and.
Oh, when I gotta piss. Oh man, when I gotta piss, I got a small bladder, so it's like, when I gotta go, man, get the fuck out of my way. Yeah, it's not good. So, but yeah, man, it's been a long haul, man. Thinking about it, I knew you before I knew Comiskey. There's a couple dudes that I have, like my buddy that's come and helped me move tomorrow, Dave. I've known him since we were 18. A buddy of mine who's a fucking Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I'm a Titans fan, and we're at each other hard right now with the text. We're just bitch slapping each other left and right. And
congrats on
that. Yeah. Well, we'll see how I feel tomorrow night around 8:30. I'm feeling fairly confident, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, John and I've been, we went to high school together. So there's a couple of those guys around, but there's not a lot, man. You're probably in the top 5 of friends that I've had for a long, long time. I'll give you this, dude. You and I never really had any moments where our friendship was tested. As in, we had some loggerheads or something about something. We've never had that. We've never been like, yeah, dude, fuck you, I'm done with you, or that kind of shit, which a lot of friends do occasionally have those moments where either they're too close or something happens. Like in specific, something like this happened with one of my longtime friends just recently, and I don't know if that'll get rectified. Maybe it will. Maybe one of us will, resolve that at some point, but I don't know. But anyway, that's cool. That's why I've always respected you a lot, because we just don't we don't have that bullshit, you know what I mean? And we're always cool with each other. And like I said, oftentimes you're a calming influence on me. Not much, maybe like about that much, because let's be honest, it doesn't work very easily. But and I think conversely, I sometimes get you more amped in certain specific situations.
I think it's like any relationship, right? You have a little bit give and take, a little bit opposites attract kind of deal.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
It's, it's like when you want to have a good time, you have your archetypes where you have, the fun friend, the cool friend, whatever, the logistics friend.
My enthusiasm for certain things can be infectious for certain people. And as I said, sometimes my negative enthusiasm is not the greatest thing too. So, all right, man, we can get off that, but
yeah. So
what you got for me?
Well, why don't we get into, just because this is my first show, and why don't we get into how you got into streaming? Because I think when you first told me about it and invited me, it took me by surprise. I had no idea you were doing this, and
but should it have caught you by surprise? And the reason why is, think about what but predominantly me, did with the street team thing, and how that kind of rolled with the Porcupine Street Team thing, where I got pretty obsessed with being the mad scientist behind it all. What happened with streaming is that when about October of 19, as you know, I was on some medication for anxiety, and we can trip into that later, but I was on some medication for anxiety for a long time, like entirely too fucking long. And I realized that I had to get off of it because I couldn't sleep without it. I couldn't really function without it. And I wasn't an addict. I was dependent. And when I went off of it, man, it was a nightmare. We'll get into that in a little bit. Oh, we're getting some rebound. Did you pull
that
up?
Was me. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you have YouTube up, you can't have you got to kill the volume. So what happened there was, man, I went through about a 1.5 year withdrawal that was a fucking nightmare that I wouldn't wish on people I don't like. And there are a few of those out there. And I couldn't really watch TV, man, because it was I don't know if you can see it. I have a big ass TV back there, a 60-inch plasma. And, it throws off a lot of heat, and it's very, I'm close to it because I'm in my bedroom, and it's very intense. And I was like, I tried to watch TV. I couldn't. Very little anyways. And so I got on my laptop, and I started watching YouTube, which I honestly didn't do much YouTube before 19. I'm not going to say I never did it, but it was not much, very, very little.
Right.
And I'm not a TV guy. I'm kind of a, like shows on TV. I couldn't tell you what was on TV now to save my life, unless it's sports, my Rockets or my Titans. That's about it. And occasionally, a Turner Classic movie thing or something, or not, whatever, the movie channel or whatever. But generally, I buy a lot of Blu-rays, which you can see. Oh, no, I packed everything up. Oops, never mind. I have a shit ton of Blu-rays in addition to my crazy obsession with CDs and music. And I watch series, so things like X-Files and Millennium and Starsky and Hutch. I'm a nostalgic dude. Y50. I'm stuck in the '70s where I grew up, and that's my favorite era of films and my favorite era of '60s and '70s and a little bit of '80s. And and I just couldn't even do that because I was feeling so shitty all the time. So what I ended up doing was getting on YouTube on my laptop, and somehow I fell into the Sea of Tranquility, which is a music related website, or not website, YouTube channel. And Pete Pardo is the host of it. And I started just digging down into these album rankings and deep dives that he would do and different things he put together theme wise for his YouTube channel. When I joined his channel in October of 19, he had about 14,000 people. He now has about 70,000 subs. Okay. And I was like, man, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. But I'm too sick. I'm just too sick to do this. What I also that's what I was saying at the time. What I also ran into about 2 years ago then, when I started to feel a little bit better, was there was a group of guys that included Marty Worm, Eric Bauer, Pat down at Ground Zero Salem, Ben Brain Smasher, one more, Matt at the Dark Path. And they had these Friday night live streams where they would just get on and get drunk and talk music and concerts and albums and bands and sometimes cinema and drunken stories. And just, I started identifying with these cats going, man, those guys, I should hang out with those guys. They got great stories. I got great stories, man, and I do pride myself on being a bit of a bullshitter that is good at telling a story. So I started hanging out in the comments, and after a bit, I want to say maybe after 6 months, one of the guys, I think it was Ben, said, "Hey, MetalMadness66, you need to have a channel. You seem to know quite a bit about music and metal and other genres and things. You really ought to think about doing that." And I think it was Marty that really, really pushed me to do it. And you met Marty, obviously. You never met Ben. But I kind of was like, I want to do this. So about November, I should add that they, in July of 2020, invited me on. And then periodically I would make appearances on some of the streams. Sometimes it was for an hour or two and they'd kick me out to get other people in, or they'd invite me in later or whatever. And, it just started to be a thing where it was like, and this is during the heart of the pandemic where nobody was even leaving their bedrooms, let alone their house, And so I'm like, you know what, man, I really should do this. And Marty kept coaxing me and dude, you should. And finally in November, I think it was November or October of 2020, I think it was. Yeah, I threw a channel up and I started pretty badly doing, I don't have a lot of animation or intros, which I need to do. I'm lazy. But I started to do some stuff. And then, as you know, I've got some health issues, which I don't think I really want to get into tonight, maybe in a future episode. But I had some health challenges that made it like I just struggled to come up with ideas. I struggled to, and I was like, you know what? This is stupid, man. I shouldn't even do this. This is a waste. But some of the other guys that I met in the chat, like Rick, Brian, Jake, Ken, a couple other guys, we started doing Nick, young Nick, Stefan, some of these guys. We started doing Saturday night streams so as not to interfere with the Friday night guys. And some of the Friday guys would jump on with us on occasion. But we always kind of refer to ourselves as the D-listers as opposed to the A-listers, right? But that's kind of how it started. And we started doing these fairly regular, sometimes weekly, back when it was before the world semi opened up and when it was, quite frankly, probably safer. I don't know. But we started doing these weekly streams, bi-weekly streams, something like that. And all of us kind of signed up for StreamYard, and we'd kind of bounce around and, do one guy's channel and another guy's channel the next week or whatever. And, a lot of times it was flexing, just showing our shit that we got. And as you know, because of my medical situation, I'm not buying a lot of stuff like I used to. I mean, there was a period of time when I was working and feeling better where I was buying, honestly, man, I was buying 20 to 25 CDs a month. It's a lot. But I was buying them because
you have a hardcore collection. Yeah, for sure.
But I do. But I was doing it not because I wanted to show stuff off on YouTube, because I didn't know anything about YouTube. I was doing it because it is an obsession. Some guys own BMWs. Some guys own, boats in a marina. Some guys own a fucking vacation house down at the shore. I own a killer fucking CD collection that's not going to be worth shit when I die. That's not true. There is some stuff valuable, but it brings me happiness, and and then I got into Blu-rays, which we won't even touch on tonight. But that's kind of how that rolled, and we would flex and show off stuff, and then we would talk, and then it got more. We got to know each other much better as friends, even though we never actually met in person. You and I have, and Chuck and I have, and John when he was on a couple times. But I've never met Rick in person. I've never met Brian in person, Jake in person, Stefan, any of those guys. They're my YouTube buds, and they're good friends, man, especially Rick, man. He's been a tight fucking dude. He is a stand-up human being, and that's for you to find out when you bring Rick on and interview him, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Which, by the way, Rick is Dreadful Minutes on that you might see in the comments. So. I have to say, when Jeff started bringing me in, I wasn't really sure what to expect. A bunch of dudes talking metal, and while I love some metal, I don't consider myself an expert in that genre necessarily.
Right.
But I have to say, the community that I guess that you invited me into is very very welcoming, and I found with time, really, really cool people. For me personally, it was a huge deal to start doing this with you guys, because, I had the kind of double whammy of, COVID isolation, and, I have a young child, so I'm even more isolated because, we're trying to stay safe. And originally, we were really, pretty much never going to do anything. Right. So
sure.
I missed interaction with people. So,
well, I'm going to interject one little piece here, and this is true. I invited you on, and you kind of declined, and I said, dude, what if I'm going to die soon, and this is the last time you can hang out with me? And then you jumped on.
You did guilt trip me a little bit, yeah.
I did. Oh, I absolutely fucking guilt tripped you. No doubt about it. I absolutely did it. And I'm still here. So, again, I don't want to touch on that tonight because I'm a little raw on that because of everything else that's going on with the move and my father's health and everything. But some of what I'm dealing with the last 2 years. And, I'll just leave it at this. I've been having neurological issues that are pretty severe and intense that lend themselves to something called either dysautonomia, which is a condition you can live with, albeit in a difficult fashion, but you can function and live a relatively normal life, okay? But it's also a very good chance I have something called autonomic neuropathy. I'm going through round 2 testing right now, and that is a terminal illness. Now, I don't know that I'm terminal for sure, but there's a lot of speculation now by my doctors that it may be. If it is, it is, man. I don't want to delve any further in that. But, yeah, I guilt-tripped the fuck out of you, and you stepped up, and a funny thing happened on the way to the live stream. You kind of dug it, and you kind of enjoyed jumping in and hanging out, and yeah, I can't really read. Sorry. Yeah, man. Jimmy, there's a classic example. Future Ruins, Jimmy. You should sub to him. You should sub to all these people in the comments, and most of us are. But Jimmy's a perfect example. Somehow we got to talking on Instagram about 4, maybe 5 months ago, and he's like, "Bro, I know I've been following your situation, and I feel, I feel awful, and I really need to hook up with you because we have a lot in common. We need to talk." And the truth of the matter is, Jimmy, I reached out to you and I forced you to fucking join us. You know that. And since you've been on 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna fuck this up. Three gas masks and hand grenades. I think, Serge, you've been on 4. I
Maybe.
think
Sounds
4.
about right. I have no
Yeah,
account.
and then guys like Rick and Brian and Nick from Thralls of Metal. We've all we're fucking brothers from another mother, and it works, man. And we have a symbiosis and chemistry that we don't have to be in each other's space. We all know that we've got a lot of commonalities in who we are as human beings and who we are as people, and the things that we love and enjoy and that get us rocking. Well, it's okay, that's cliche. That get us excited are all very similar, and we like to share with one another those things. So it's been a cool fucking thing. And I will say, because of my health condition and because I live with an older man who's 81 now and his health is failing really bad, and we all had COVID recently, I can't engage with the world like I would like to, for physical reasons and for logistical reasons. And so reaching out to people out there it's like it's the next best thing. And all these dudes have been fucking insanely cool. Like I said, especially Rick, Jake, and Brian, and Devin, who I haven't talked to in a bit because of some issues, but he really helped me a lot the last couple months prior, December, January, or not December, November, and October. And these are good fucking people, man. These are very good people. They're good human beings, and that's a rarity in this world. I think there's a lot of shit out there, and when you find good people, man, you have an affinity for them, and you want to hang. So this is, instead of going out to the bar on a Saturday night, or the club, or the goth club, or whatever, or even shows, quite frankly, this is the next best thing, and it's been a lot of fun. And so we've done a bunch of, I've done a bunch of regular videos, not a bunch, but a few. But what I really found my niche developing was what I'm calling my, I don't know, flagship of my channel is called Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. And it is a deep dive show where I enlist a panel of people. I don't just sit there and talk about my love for a band and what I think about the albums. I get everybody in and we talk about our commonality and how we got into the band and what they mean to us and what they are in our musical hierarchy, where they rank, and what they do for us and have done for us. And then we all tear apart as a group, singularly. Then as a group, we tear apart generally it's just the studio discography. But if anybody's watching, tomorrow night, 9:00, I'm doing one on Marillion, the Fish era. It's going to kick fucking ass because I love that band. And it's only going to be me and one other guy, Lee Gunnard. And I'm psyched for that. But that's kind of my deal right now, man. Maybe I'll do other things. I don't know. It's hard to say. A lot of it depends on my health and circumstances I'm involved in here with being a caregiver for my old man now. And so that's that.
Yeah, you covered it well, and again, for me, yeah, that I think, and for many people, I think right now, over the last couple of years, for various different situations, or maybe longer, you might miss some human interaction, some sense of community that we may have had when we were younger.
For sure.
I saw my friend Amy in the comments. She has some experience being disabled, and that's hard. It isolates you.
It sucks.
And so this sort of thing is, is kind of a godsend for me. So that's why I decided to do this. Honestly, if anything, it's a little
I think
selfish. It's just a desire to,
why not?
I know a lot of cool people, and I want to, I want to, I guess, show everybody else how how amazing they are. But
You mean everybody but me? But anyway, I mean, I know I'm amazing. What can I say? No, I think that's a key thing, that the way we used to live isn't gonna be the same for a while. And I'm not one of these doom and gloomers that says it's never gonna be the same. We're always gonna be, I don't believe in that, and I don't, I having had COVID about 2 months ago, the Delta variant, by the way. It was the most brutal fucking thing, short of having cancer diagnosed for me back in 2009, which was, I was out of my body watching myself talk to the surgeon at that point in time. But other than that, having COVID was the sickest I think I've ever felt. And watching my father suffer and struggle and now kind of lose all his functionality and autonomy the last 2 months, and watching my landlord die from it back on December 7th. He went in the hospital, came home 2 days later, went back in the hospital 2 days later, never came home. He was put on a vent 2 weeks later, and he was gone 2 days after that. He was 77, and he had COPD and other comorbidities, but, it was sad. I've had to deal with his kids, and that went well at first and it is not going as well now, but it's, I have empathy for him, because my dad's really failing in the last couple of weeks, and I don't know what's going to happen there. And while we aren't, super tight father and son thing, I'm all he's got. And so it's been a struggle, because I've turned into a caregiver, and I know Rick's in the comments, and Rick knows all too well what that's like, and that's his story to tell. But it's a heavy burden, man. It's a heavy, heavy thing to carry around. And so, yeah, it's tough, and people need an outlet, and they need to feel connected. At least I do. And this was a great way
we're social
gain.
creatures, right?
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that, Serge, over the years, we've had our moments where we've been super connected, and then we've had periods where we drifted apart, not because we weren't friends anymore, but you were doing your thing, I was doing mine with young or teenage kids. But we'd always run into each other at a few shows in New York, or we'd come up and visit or whatever with Maddie and my other daughter Lauren. And but we had moments where we'd go 6-8 months without talking, or not regularly anyways. Maybe every 4 months be like, "Hey dude, how you doing, man? Everything cool?" or whatever. And when you got married, we came down for your wedding. But for your bachelor party, I just couldn't do it because I had shit going on with my kids. And, I always felt guilty about that. But you know what? You never made me feel guilty. You never were like, dude, thanks a lot for fucking me on my bachelor party. Or thanks for not being able to give me a gift at my wedding because I had lost a really good job and had to keep myself in my house and shit. So, yeah, I can't really see. Tough on KK.
Yeah, this is my friend Amy. Yeah. And by the way, that's my other outlet, right? Is playing D&D online, obviously, also. So, if anybody has not tried, I highly recommend it. It's a fun little distraction.
Hey, just letting you guys know, Serge is a fucking nerd. Anyway.
Oh, I I'm proud of it, for sure.
That's cool. I'm busting your balls.
You listen to prog bands. Half those bands are making up songs about Lords of the Rings and shit.
Who's a nerd and who's not? Come on, look at that tattoo. How fucking nerdy can you get when you get a band's gesture symbol from Marillion on as a tattoo? But remember that from out now, San Francisco. Prog nerd points, 1,000 prog nerd points. So yeah, man. I mean, that's how the whole streaming thing went, and it's actually been in a weird way a lifesaver in many ways. I don't want to be melodramatic, but it's been a big deal, and it's been a lot of fun. And I don't honestly care if I had 2 subs or 2,000 subs or 200,000 subs. It's the community of people that I met that I'm tight with that matters to me. I don't really give a fuck. And sorry, I use the F word if you guys haven't figured that out much. I don't give a shit
Don't worry,
if
this is an adult channel. It's
yeah,
okay.
but I don't really give a shit if anybody watches my shit or if a lot of people watch my shit. Clearly, it's nicer to get comments from people that are like, "Dude, that was killer deep dive or whatever." But I'm not really tied into this thing. Like my ego is not tied into YouTube in a way that it's like I gotta see myself up on the screen. I don't give a fuck about that. I get with if it was just me, that's why I don't do a lot of videos of just me, because it's not about me feeding my ego to be seen and be thought of
Yeah.
as an authority on something. I generally like the streams and the deep dives because I'm hanging with my bros, and that's what it's about. So
Yeah, I mean, same for me. When you first started kind of encouraging me to start a channel, I'm like, well, what would I like? What do I have to offer? Right? I knew it wouldn't be anything where it was just me, right? Like it's just not my personality.
yeah,
Um,
it's not you at all. That's not you. It is me in a way. I am pretty fucking arrogant and pretty full of myself, but not in this realm. It's not like I get on there and I go, well, you guys, thanks for your opinions, but fuck you. My opinion's the right one. And what I say is what really matters. That's not it at all, man. Like the quality of my deep dives and the quality of my live streams with those guys, with all of you guys, you, Chuck, Rick, so on and so forth. The quality of those is elevated because of the people that I bring in. It is not. It's devalued by me sometimes. You know what I mean? So yeah. So all right, next one. Moving on.
well, so let's. I mean, so as we kind of discussed, this is one of the one of the reasons we do this is it's a coping mechanism, and I don't know. I'm gonna guess for you, but I'll let you speak on it. Another one for me is music, right? That's one of the reasons I got into music
Oh
is
hell yeah.
so much is because I have emotional reaction to it, and different kinds of music. It fits with me in different moods, and different times I feel something, and sometimes it is just a coping mechanism. I mean, like I'll go to bed, and sometimes I just need to put on some ambient music to just
Oh yeah.
set my mind. So I'll how do you feel in um, using music that way?
As you know, I am I have a pretty expansive uh, genre. I'm cross genre loving. I don't know how to put this. I have a pretty expansive palette of music I listen to. On any given day, I could be listening to ABBA. I could be listening to Frank Zappa. I could be listening to Dark Throne. I could be listening to Pink Floyd. I could be listening to Rush, Triumph. It's kind of endless. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, big band music from like Benny Goodman. About the only thing I do not listen to is Murica country. I do like some old country like Hank Williams Sr., Waylon, Willie. I can dig that. Johnny Cash in particular. I can dig some of that. But any like new America country, and I hate to say it, I'm just not a rap guy. I just can't get my head around it. I'm not denigrating it. It's an incredibly important development in music for sure, but it's just not. It doesn't work for me. I don't enjoy it. But I certainly acknowledge its importance. But for me, and ambient, dark ambient, so it's kind of endless. I used to listen to music all the time when I would go to bed. I don't do it so much anymore, just because a lot of the times it kind of I get too hyper focused on what's coming next, or what, especially if it's not something I've heard. But yeah, for me, there's such an emotional and nostalgic connectivity to music that is, you know, it's heavy and it's very intense. It's very, you know, it gets me here a lot in the feels, as they say, the kids say. And it can be the, you know, the vitriolic intensity of death metal and harsh screams, or black metal with, you know, the melancholic, solitary freakiness of that kind of music at times, or darkness of it. Um, or it can be something like, you know, Nurse with Wound, like funeral music for Perez Prado, which is one of the most beautiful pieces of music you'll ever fucking hear. It's like it makes me want to just cry. And I've had, I don't cry easy, but I've had pieces of music that do that for me. And man, that's special. That is a special
Yeah.
moment when you can connect with something that brings you to tears. And I remember you talking about the Arab woman that, you know, her, I can't remember her name. I'm
Persian.
sorry. Yeah.
Azam Ali.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her voice is just, it's the stuff of stars, man. It's the stuff of galaxies colliding, and you're just, you, you know, anything that's ethereal and haunting and melancholic and sad, I'm in. When shit's too happy, I'm just not as into it. But that's not to say that I can't listen to something like "They Call Me Mellow Yellow" and go, yeah, I dig that, man. That's cool. But you know what I'm talking about? I'm just not into hearing a lot of happy stuff unless it's ABBA. Then I'm cool with it. But a lot of ABBA is very, very sad. So, you know, but I'm, you know, for me, I connect with that level of music far more than I do with, you know, fucking, uh, you know, a lot of pop. Although I like a lot of pop. I'm not gonna lie, man. I can jam on Like a Virgin with from Madonna on occasion, and I Would Die from You, or I Would Die for You from Prince. Man, Prince was a fucking genius. I love him. So you know, it's there, but yeah, I am very viscerally connected, brain, body, and heart and soul to music. It's the most, other than my children and you know, my family essentially. There's really nothing that, and my friends. There's really nothing that means more to me in the world. Money doesn't mean much to me in terms of, that's not that I don't want it or don't need it, but I mean, money doesn't mean the same thing to me like music does. If someone came to me and said, "Hey, man, you can have all the music in the world, unlimited, forever, or you can have this $1,000,000," I'd struggle right there, man, because I'd want that million
$1 million,
dollars.
but you can't listen to music
That's it. Man, oof,
because
I'll
I
get.
couldn't do it.
I don't think I could either, man. I don't think I could either. You know, I always think about 2112, you know, and the character in 2112 that finds the guitar and takes it to the priests in the temples of Syrinx and says, you know, what is this? What is this great device I found? When I touch it, it gives forth a sound, and it's got wires that vibrate in your music, and it's like, that shit's in my soul. And you know what Rush means to me, man. I mean, that's the end all be all for me. And so I so identify with that. And it's like I can look back on so many experiences in my life that music was a critical focal point with and in, and I can't do that with much else. You know, I just can't. And music has always been my first great love, probably, over everything else. And you know, I really wouldn't want to ever give that up.
Yeah, for sure. What what would what would you consider your first kind of visceral musical experience?
I remember it pretty definitively. I would have been very early 70s, maybe 71, 72. I'd have been about 5 or 6, and my mom had three records that I remember. I'll remember till the day I die, and she used to play them. And the first one was "Sweet Baby James" by James Taylor. You know that song, "Rockabye Sweet Baby James"? Does that ring a
Yeah.
bell to you? Okay.
Yeah.
That song used to be like a lullaby for me to go to sleep to.
Mm.
Uh, Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water, man. Oh my God, what a fucking gorgeous album. What a damn near perfect album. And the other one was Carole King, Tempest. I feel the earth move under my feet. And those three albums, man, when my mom would put them on, it was like, boom, I'm in. This is it. She wasn't listening to the Beatles. She wasn't listening to Black Sabbath. She was listening to those, what you would probably call AOR, easy listening type, album oriented AM radio rock, I
Sure.
guess you'd call it. And man, I own every fucking one of those albums, every damn one of them. And they are some of my top 20 favorite albums and will be till the day I die. So that is my first visceral remembrance of that. Also, my dad was really into classical music, and he used to put on Brahms Concerto Number 9, I think it was, or Beethoven Number 9. Da, 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. Somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't own a lot of classical. I like it, but I don't own a lot, and so I don't know. Other than Handel's Water Music and Vivaldi Four Seasons, I really don't know. I'm not real good with the Bach and Beethoven concertos, but I remember that being really intense. And Nutcracker Suite, dun, 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 from Tchaikovsky. So those are probably my very first memories of that. But two other key important things happened when we moved from our first house. The first house with my mom and dad. To what I would call moving on up to the burbs. We moved in next to a house that had 5 brothers. All of them were older than me. The youngest was maybe 2 or 3 years older. The oldest was already in college, so I'm like this fucking 7-year-old kid. And I'm going over to their garage, and they've got a pool table set up, and I start hearing Led Zeppelin 4, Jethro Tull, Aqualung, Yes, Close to the Edge, Rod Stewart, I forget the name of the album, one with Hot Legs on it. Anyways, George Carlin, I forget the name of the album, and Cheech and Chong. Those are the albums that stick out in my head, and that's when my love of hard rock started to kick in. Jethro Tull, Aqualung, and especially Led Zeppelin 4, those 2 albums in particular. And then the magic happened. And the magic was 1975, but I don't think I got it until early in 76 for my birthday. I bought my first record album that I owned, that I bought with my money, probably allowance for doing the dishes or whatever. And I bought Kiss Alive, man. And people may laugh at Kiss now, except for Kiss fans. And I'm not a giant Kiss fan anymore. But man, from 1976 through 1979, nothing else mattered. And until I discovered Rush in 1979, that was it, man. Christine 16, I'm sorry, Love Gun, Rock and Roll Over, what's the other? Just to Kill. Man, I was in, and I still contend a lot of those albums are fucking great until you get to Dynasty. There's some good stuff after that I kind of like, but, and I only saw him once. That's all I had to see him, and it was life-altering, man. I mean, I wanted to be a rock star. You can see I got the rock star hair, but I'm not a rock star. But I fell in love with playing the guitar around then, 75, 76. I didn't really learn to play it until I was more into my later teens. But I would get up on my roof down in Houston, Texas, with my Stella acoustic guitar and put my Rock and Roll Over out and put I Want You, and I'd be up on the roof, and all the neighborhood girls were hanging out watching me up on the roof. My mom had no idea I was there.
The first image I had was that scene in The Crow when he was playing guitar on the roof.
Pretty much.
Except you were doing it for the girls.
I was 13 and I was doing it for the girls. Yeah, I thought I was, anyways. But yeah, man. Then shit like I heard Pink Floyd's in 1976 or 5 when it came out. Or no, it came out in 72. In 75, I heard Dark Side of the Moon, Grand Illusion from Styx, Ted Nugent, Double Live Gonzo. Yeah, I had that. I owned it. It's a great guitar album. Ted's a dick, but that's neither here nor there. I didn't know about him back then. Pink Floyd, The Wall, Rush Hemispheres, Rush of Farewell to Kings, 2112. Need I throw the whole discography out? And that a Triumph of Progressions of Power. Man, dude, like just so many killer fucking albums, man. And all the Led Zeppelin catalog, you know, obviously 1 and 2 and 3, and you know, House of the Holy. It just grew and grew and grew, and my obsession grew, and UFO, and you know, just man, it just brings a smile to my face thinking about that shit. It makes me glad to be alive, and it makes me glad I was there. And I got to tell you, man, I mean, every generation says this, but I was born in '66, and I'm so glad and grateful that I came up in the '70s and I got to listen to that stuff when it was being made and coming out, and it shit changed my life, man. I mean, that stuff changed my life. I didn't become a professional musician. I am a musician, kind of, you know, a bedroom musician. You know, you see me play, and I'd love to
And
be
Jeff
better
is a
than I
good
am.
guitar player. I can attest to that.
I'm decent. I'm decent. I wouldn't say I'm incredible, but I'm pretty decent. But I never, sadly, because of some of my mental health issues, namely anxiety, it was very much a struggle for me to try to become that rock star guy. But you know, it's funny. I think if I would have conquered that fear a little bit earlier in my life, I'd have been a damn good rock star. I'm pretty sure. I probably would have been a dead rock star by now, but I probably would have been a damn good rock star. But yeah, man, you know,
I don't think I ever asked you. Did you ever actually like try to play in bands?
Oh yeah, I played in a couple bands. I was in my my sophomore year. I tried out for a band called Storm, and it was one of my best buddies, Jim on drums, another good friend of mine, Greg Rogers on bass, and a guy named Scott Bailey on guitar. And they were looking for, and another guy, Eric Fry, on keyboards, and they were doing stuff like early Ozzy. So we're talking 82 ish. They were doing like Flying High Again. They were doing Rush, like Subdivisions. What else did we do? Shit. Love Stinks from Jay Giles band, and you know, stuff like that. And so my buddy came to me. He's like, dude, you're a really good singer. Our guitar player, it's in his garage. We practice, but you would fucking waste him. So you got to come over with Greg and I, and we're gonna say we want to try you out as a singer. So I came over and I fucking tore it up. Everybody but Scott wanted me in the band, and he's like, "Well, I got to talk to these guys," and blah 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 blah. And next day, yeah, we're gonna do it. And then the first practice, I show up a week later. Scott's parents come out and fire me from the band because Scott was intimidated by the fact that I was
fired by
a much better
parents.
singer.
Wow.
And it was his house that they were practicing at. So then I was in a band with another band called Broker's Brain. I sang and did a little bit of guitar in that, and then I did some original stuff with a couple of guys that never really went anywhere. A band called Animation. What else? And then we had like by the time I got into when I knew you, now we're talking like early 2000s. I hooked up with a couple guys that worked for my parents, and my parents owned a engineering firm, and they had a big, huge loading dock area and warehouse in the back. And we just set up drums and amps, and we could fucking crank. And it's why I've got tinnitus so bad, tinnitus from cranking amps. And we found a guy who's much better at lead guitar than me. Yeah, and that too. Yeah.
Without earplugs.
Wear earplugs, kids. I'm telling you right now, you don't want to deal with what I deal with.
Earplugs.
But yeah, we didn't really have a name. We got a pretty good guitar player, and I sang and played rhythm. Had another friend of mine who came in and played bass. You know, because he was like the worst guitar player. So we're like, hey, dude, you want to play bass? You know how that goes, Serge, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like, hey man, you want to play bass? Yeah, you can play bass.
I picked up bass because I figured that's the easiest instrument, and I'm pretty sure.
It's the path of least resistance if you want to be in a band. It's like, hey man, he's not really a good guitar player, but let's get him to play bass, you know. So that's kind of how that went. And then I did that for a while. And of course, I have battled alcohol issues, mainly driving and drinking, or drinking and driving. And so
Don't
for
do
a
that,
long,
kid.
long, what's that? Yeah, don't do that, guys. Don't do that. I'm a poster child for that, for what it can do to fuck your life up and cost you a lot of money. But yeah, I kind of, during the period when I was 14 years sober there for a long time, I was reluctant to go out and play and take it further than the garage, because I didn't know if I trusted myself to be out at that point in time, and potentially I wouldn't have done it. Now I can have a beer or two and stop. I don't get near a car. I go to sleep. I don't go out. I never drink out. And I don't get fucking wasted. Rarely. I don't really get wasted at all. At one time in the last 7 years, I can't handle the hangovers, man. They're too brutal. But that doesn't mean I'm not aware of the power that this stuff has to distort my thought processes. So I'm very, very guarded about what I do with it. But so yeah, I did play in bands, but was it ever anything where I was out making a lot of money from it? No, not really. No.
Yeah, I think that's a rarity anyway, percentage wise, right?
Well,
I played
yeah. I
in a
mean,
band once that, mainly because I was lucky enough to have friends who
yeah,
were good at
yeah.
playing at music
Oh
and
yeah.
invited me,
They're
which
like,
is I'll
they're like,
I'll talk about that when Winston guests.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I was always jealous of people who, I say had musical talent, but I'm always wary of saying, "Oh, you're just talented," because it's skill, it's work, right? People put in
It's
work,
everything.
and
It's absolutely
you
work,
don't
man.
you don't magically learn to play an instrument.
There
You put
are
time in it.
there are those few prodigy type guys that can pick an instrument up, and in no time they're suddenly blowing out and shredding and doing stuff that you're like, how the fuck? And that may be him. That's not me, man. Not at all. I have to work at it, and I'm limited in some capacities, especially now that I've got this really fucked up finger. But I still can play pretty well, considering. I talk to people that are guitar players, and they're like, "Dude, I'm like, I'm not really that great." And then I'll be like on with a guitar player, then they're like, "Dude, you're way better than you think you are." But I'm not Joe Satriani or Steve Vai or something like that. It's just,
But you don't
it
have
is
to be,
what.
right? I I feel like to make good music is it's not even necessarily all about the skill. If the one thing I learned from playing in a bunch of bars and dives, and usually you're not the only band, right? You're playing with a bunch of other local bands. Is
Oh yeah.
man,
Oh, yeah.
I met a lot of musicians who are really technically good, but man, there's a lot less of them that could write a good song.
Oh, the huge
You
difference,
know
man. I
that
mean, George Harrison he was a pretty good guitar player, but George and Paul and um, John, I wouldn't say they were clinicians or technicians, but I can tell you straight up, those dudes knew those fucking instruments like nobody's business. Knew chord structure and progressions like nobody's business, and they wrote a few okay songs. So and Ringo Starr is actually a much better drummer than people give him credit for being. Um, so that's just one example. There are a
oh,
lot.
maybe
Okay.
I'll piss off some people, but like Bruce Springsteen is not a great guitar player.
He writes great songs, though, man.
He writes well. I'm not a huge fan, but I'll say that he writes songs that people like. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge
I
fan
think
either,
he's a
but
better songwriter than he is a guitar player.
oh, for sure, for sure. And he's a good wordsmith, and Bob Dylan wouldn't be someone I would say is some type of master musician, but man, for years I stayed away from that guy because I couldn't get into his voice for years and years and years and years. I gotta say now, man, he has written some of the most classic fucking songs you're ever gonna hear, and he's a skilled songwriter, and he's an incredible lyricist, and that's a skill, man. I mean, it is not easy to do. You can put David Bowie. You know, David Bowie wasn't somebody that I would say was like shredding out, burning notes all over the neck and stuff. But I defy you to find a better songwriter and musician on the planet. The guy, you don't even get me started on Bowie, man, because we're done for the night. But yeah, man, it is a skill, and it is not easy to write good songs that last the test of time. That's the difference. Things that we're still listening to 40, 50 years from now, from when they came out. That's a testament to what those guys could do.
Yeah. And, again, we may be somewhat biased because I feel like the music you hear as, when you're a kid, when you're a teen, it really sticks with you because
Absolutely.
that's some of them, your earliest experiences with music. And it's really hard to compare that, to, artists you get exposed to later on. It's harder to reach that. So for me, I'll tell my story real quick of my kind of first exposures. So I came here from Russia when I was 11, almost 12. In Russia, I was not exposed to Western music at all. This is this was the tail end of the Soviet era, and it was just not. I mean, there were bands that were touring Russia, Soviet Union at the time, somewhat. I just didn't have that extent. There's no like radio that played Western music, right? So we didn't have tape player, right? We had a record player. That's pretty much all you could hope for at the time. Tape
Right.
were like a luxury.
Right.
So, and we had some Russian records, but I had really no exposure to it, and I don't remember where, but I got a tape of American music that I was listening to while during immigration. So for immigration at the time was a, kind of a long process. So we lived in Austria for a bit, and then we lived in Italy for a bit. And at that point, we I think we did have a tape player, and I had this tape, and it had um, it had a couple of Beatles songs in there, and had a Michael Jackson song on there, and that was like my first exposure, and I played that tape to death because honestly,
I'm sure. Yeah.
But the first year I was here, that summer, my parents sent me to a sleepaway summer camp, and um, I could barely speak English at the time, and so I got assigned to a bunk, and it's like 4 people per bunk, and I got us. The other 3 kids were all East Jewish kids from Long Island, and they fortunately they kind of took to me and were helped me A, learn English, and B, just yeah, get acquainted of, I guess, the culture and everything.
American culture.
But
Right.
but I picked up my first music taste from those because they were huge music fans, and they were mainly listening to like classic rock, and they were huge Floyd fans.
Yeah.
And that became my biggest influence still, right? Floyd is there's nothing compares to it. Not only was it my first influence, music, listen to music, but a few years later, when I was in high school, my friend's dad took us to see the Division Bell tour, and I was completely blown away. It was like a religious experience. So
I saw that one too. I saw Momentary Lapse was my first time. I missed them with Waters, man. I almost got to see a Wall show in Houston, but that's hazy as to how close I was or wasn't. But I was close. But then I saw him I saw him Momentary, and then I saw him Division Bell down in Philly, Veterans Stadium, which isn't even there anymore. And also when I saw him for Momentary, that was our JFK Stadium, which is no longer there either. Just huge moment, man. Huge moment. And revelatory shows for me, just like my first Rush show. First of many Rush shows. too many to even get into because it would be 10 hours long. But yeah, man, I mean, like you said, and we always talk about this as a group, is like where you came in on a band usually is where you're more centrally located. So we talked about on the Opus stream the other night, a couple weeks ago, you and I came in at Blackwater Park. So we gravitate to that area. Still Life, Blackwater, My Arms Rehearse, and maybe up to Ghost Reveries. And then we like all the other stuff, but those are our meat and potatoes. If I got to choose two, those, that's what comes with me. With Rush, it was Hemispheres was first, and Moving Pictures was second, or not Moving Pictures, Permanent Waves, and then Farewell. And it's like, that's where my heart is. I love most Rush. I don't love every single Rush, but I love most of it. Go check out my deep dive on Rush, by the way. I'm pimping gas masks and hand grenades. But yeah, man, these are landmark moments in our lives, and they are pivotal experiences that are nostalgic, sure, but they are also beacons in our life. I have a trouble remembering what day it is a lot of the time, and I have a trouble remembering what I might have had for dinner yesterday, but I can remember almost distinctly what the hell was happening and what I was doing the night I went to see Rush, February 2nd or 5th. I forget which day. Doesn't matter, but I remember every fucking moment of going to the show, being at the show, smoking pot for the first time, leaving the show, carrying a bunch of shirts on my shoulder, and some dude running past me and stealing all of them. And they were all from my friends at school, and I had to give them their money back. And, imagine if you did that now with shirts at $50 a pop. Back then they were $5 or $8 for a Raglan baseball jersey, and that was a lot of money in 1980. But now, if you lost 7 or 8 shirts off your shoulder by some asshole running by and stealing them, you'd be out $400. And these are these are imprints on our brains and in our hearts and in our minds and in our experiences. And it's like, and you and I have a bunch of those in common, where we've gone to see Porcupine Tree or Killing Joke up at Irving Plaza or Gary Newman down at the TLA. I think it was TLA. Yeah, it was TLA for, Pure. What's that?
No, it was TLA. Yeah.
Yeah. Or going to see Opeth at the Troc, or, or going to see Opeth in Towson, Maryland at the whatever that Resher Theater or whatever. I mean, and then hanging out on the bus when it was like 8 degrees below zero that night. And it's like, these are fucking moments that you gladly want to go back and relive because they're good. Generally, most of them are all pretty damn amazing moments,
Speaking of hanging on the bus, so thanks to us being on the street team, we basically, got to know the band, Porcupine Tree, that is, and we, at least for me, like we were lucky enough to get some backstage access, meet some people. I think Jeff, you've had a bit more exposure to that from a couple other bands as well in your experience. What are your favorite moments of kind of that backstage or tour bus or whatever that you remember?
Oh man, I mean, from PT, you were this one because you took the photos going out to San Francisco and taking a cab ride from hell to a sushi place and meeting up with Richard and Steven and Wes's Rebecca and Tracy and Ann and I don't remember if John was there or not. John J Monkey, not John Comiskey, but Ian and Adrian and Steven's young lass that he flew out there, and somebody that you used to date, and it was like that was such a kick-ass fucking moment. We're out to dinner, hanging out with the band, as friends half the night and drinking sake, and well, I wasn't drinking, but I think everybody else was. And you're like, yeah, this is happening, man. This is really happening. It's so cool. Meeting Opeth for the first time in the Deliverance tour backstage at the Truck when Michael Piper came and got John and I and took us backstage, and we're hanging out, and Doc Coyle from God Forbid was there, and Mike Portnoy walks in. I'm like, fuck, that's Portnoy. And I met him, and we're sitting there talking to Peter, and you remember Peter was like super fucking cool, and I remember saying, we're talking about black metal. I'm like, well, who are some of your favorite black metal bands? Because I didn't really know much about it. And he's like, well, Dark Throne. I'm like, are they like, I'm like sitting and I'm like, are they like this good or they way up here good? And he's like, well, they're kind of like this good. And it was just so funny the way he did it. And Michael telling me that this was right after IA came out, in Absentia came out. And Michael telling me that Steven fucking ripped off the opening riff to Blackest Eyes from him because it was a riff he had and was going to do that, and they were working on production and everything, and he fucking stole it from him. He goes, that cocksucker. But yeah, I mean that there's obviously for me, no question at all, the greatest moment, even though it only lasted about 3 minutes, for me was meeting Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson and getting my picture taken with them. You can see it on my Instagram. In 2007. But the story there is I never would have met those guys if it hadn't been for my Porcupine Tree connection, because we met Neil Peart's personal bodyguard, Michael Mossbach, out in LA back in 2002. And Tracy kind of hooked me up. Tracy Petty hooked me up with him. And that's a whole long story I'm not even going to get into. But, I almost didn't get to meet those guys. But what a thrill. I mean, if you'd have told me in 1977, when I'm a kid, I'm a 11-year-old kid walking through Foley's department store in Greenspoint Mall in Houston, Texas, and I see Hemispheres with the Brain and the Nude guy and the guy in the Bowler Derby, and I see it, and I'm like, I've heard of this band. I don't really know them, but I have to own that album. Mom, what can I do to earn the $7 for that album? What can I do? Well, you can do this and cut the lawn and pick up the dog shit and anything, Mom. I'll do anything. And I ended up getting that album. If you'd have told me and fell madly in love with that album and that band, if you had told me in 1977, hey, just hang in there, dude, because in 2007, what is that, 40 years later? My math's bad. 77, 87, 97, 2000, 30 years later. 30 years later, I was going to get to meet those two guys. I'd have been like, you're out of your fucking mind, man. There's no way. But as we know, the internet has made the world much smaller, and the global aspect of rock stardom is not the same as it used to be. But to me, man, Geddy and Alex are fucking gods and rock stars. The guys in PT, cool guys, rock stars, not really gods, and they were, just guys, Same with the Opeth guys. Alex and Geddy were like fucking gods, but they're like the most down to earth of all the stars I've ever met. They're probably the two of the most down to earth dudes ever, but they have, a huge machination around them that they can't just.
Right. I mean, that's just a logistic issue. You can't meet all your fans when you have 50,000.
Hey, I need to talk to you a sec here. I need to stop. I'm going to have to plug my phone in or you're going to lose me. So Things are going to get interesting on the volume, but we're going to work through it. Okay.
Sure.
So
right.
I don't want to, we're having something good going here and I want to get to some of your other stuff. But I'm sorry, dude, I've had a hell of a day with
no worries. It's
issues. So let me plug in and we'll try to get through this. Can you hear me now?
Here, I'll put you back. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little
I can hear you. I'm going to do one thing real quick here, okay? I'm going to turn my fan off because my room is hot, the hottest room in the house. Let me turn it off so I can hear you a little better. And if you need me to speak up, I will. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. Hope those of you who did join us live are somewhat entertained.
What's up?
Thank you. I was just talking to people watching.
Okay.
I really appreciate you guys joining.
How many people have you had in the chat?
There's a few.
I saw Rick and I saw Brian and I think Jim was in the chat for a little bit too, and your friend.
Yep.
You'll get more traffic, man. It'll happen.
Yeah. Again, I'm not so much worried about traffic. I'm not here to monetize. That ain't happening. You know.
Oh, I know. No, yeah.
This is
No, you
honestly,
just want people to see
having a chat
interesting
with
interviews
friends
and
and
have your friends
having
pop by, and it'll take time. I mean, when I started, it took me, oh man, it took me 6 or 7 months to get up to like 100 subs. And frankly, some of that happened because Marty talked about the channel. I'll talk about it on mine. Rick will pimp it. Jimmy will probably pimp it. I'm sure Brian will. Maybe somewhere along the line you'll get one of the Nick from Thralls, because he might be a cool guy to have on. And Nick has a lot of reach, so maybe he'll be able to bring a few on, and it'll be a slow accrual of people, but it'll happen.
yeah, I'm not worried. Again, this is honestly, I just want to show off people I know to other people I know, and then if other
Awesome, man.
people are interested in it, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I do.
To finish out that thought on, the experiences I've had, the one thing I found for the most part, not entirely, I have had one or two diva moments of rock stars that I've met. And I'm trying to think. One of them is the one that Marty likes to give me shit about all the time, is George Lynch. I met him twice. He was super cool the first time. Second time, he was kind of a dick, and that's just all I'll say. George seems like he's a pretty cool guy, but I don't know if he's just having a bad day or what that night. But he just was kind of an asshole. I'm trying to remember. Here's a good one. 1987, Def Leppard, Hysteria. Def Leppard, one of the biggest bands at that moment, maybe the biggest band in terms of album sales and everything, with Pyromania and Hysteria. And myself and my buddy Jim and his girlfriend, and I think two other people, went down to see them. After the show, the band Tesla opened up, and that was their first major tour for the album Mechanical Resonance. And after the tour, after the show, we went around the back where the buses would pull in, but they pulled in down like underneath the venue. So they drive down this long ramp down in, and you couldn't walk down there because they had security everywhere. And we're up above there, and we see the guys from Def Leppard come out. And we're like, and they're just waving up, and that's as good as it gets. And then we see a bus sitting out beyond where security checkpoint was, and it's just sitting there. And we're like, hey, we should walk over and see who it is. We had no idea. We just didn't know. Maybe it's one of the other guys that we didn't see from Def Leppard. And we walk over, and the door opens, and it's the fucking Tesla guys. And they let us on the bus. And we start drinking and hanging out. And then Jeff LaBar, rest in peace, from Cinderella, drives up in a Porsche with some hot babe and gets out and runs in. And, the reason we probably got on was my buddy's girlfriend was Asian, and she was really, really beautiful. And I think that was the whole reason they let us on the bus, to be honest with you. I don't think they would let us on as dudes. They would have let us all on. But I still have that check that Jeff Keith, the singer, signed. I didn't have anything for them to sign, but I had my checkbook on me, oddly. I have no idea why I had my checkbook. This is 1987, by the way. No Mac cards and shit like that yet. And I'm like, well, here, write a check out to yourself. He writes a check out for $50,000 and signed it, and then slips in his pocket. I'm like, whoa, man. I'm like, yeah, give me that back, guys. I still have that somewhere in one of my, I think in the CD, the one CD of them. And, had dinner with Doug Pinnick from King's X after a show one night. He's like, hey, at the Troc? Where's a good place to get fish? I'm like, well, there's a Oriental place right around the corner. They probably have something like that. He's like, come on, man. And so I went in and grabbed a Heineken, and I'm sitting there talking to Doug Pinnick from King's X. Like, I'd met him one time before back in '89, which was really cool. But, I'm sitting here having dinner with Doug Pinnick. It's like, how'd that happen?
That's, by the way, probably an underrated band, King's X, if you haven't not checked them out.
Fucking massively underrated. A deep dive is coming with that band, and I'm going to have a very special guest help me out on that one. But yeah, man, I mean, like, I don't use the word blessed because I don't really believe in God, and sorry if that offends anybody, but I really don't.
I don't think you need to believe in it to use that word. You know what I mean? You can, there's different ways people are blessed. So
probably. I just don't want to offend anybody that believes. I think if you do, that's great. It's just not my thing. But and I don't also believe I don't worship Satan or anything either, because I think that's a joke too.
But all the
But
black metal music you listen to. Come on, Jeff.
I know what's wrong with me, man. Um, I'm such a fake black metal fan. Actually, black metal, is not nearly as important to me as death metal. I like
I kid.
death metal
Yeah,
way better.
very, very,
Um,
very.
but yeah, I
li-
got
No. I was just gonna say, yeah. It's only a minority of black metal that really takes it seriously, in my opinion.
well,
But
true. But yeah, I just I feel very blessed to have had a lot of the experiences I had. I got to do super cool stuff like with Porcupine Tree and take my kids when they were little to a lot of shows and get them on the bus and take them backstage and get kind of ooh and awed over by the band and other people. And that was just
well,
so
one of
much
the
fun.
coolest
And
things to see, by the way, for me, yeah, your kids getting to see that, that I think I think that's very cool, and I don't know if I'll have that opportunity with my son, but we shall
you
see.
may, I mean, you know, I didn't take them to a lot of shows. I took them to mainly a fan, a friendly fire type thing. I wouldn't take them to see Watain or something like that. But as you know, my daughter Lauren has gone with me to many shows like Killing Joke and Gary Newman, I believe, and so you've been around her. And you've been around my other daughter Maddie, my younger daughter, and it's
And by the way, your kids did inherit your musical talent.
they did.
I think so. I mean, I
Oh,
remember them
oh,
playing,
dude,
singing and playing guitar, for sure.
dude, Lauren can waste me on guitar anymore. And Maddie, just wow, you've heard her voice, and she writes and plays the piano a little bit, and she's really getting into trying to play guitar better. And she's stunning, writes incredible lyrics, and just has that voice that's just mind blowing. And she's trying to make something happen. She's down in Nashville, right? Asheville, not Nashville. Um, and she's actually going to start working for the Orange Peel, which is that really killer venue down there that's
Oh yeah.
pretty famous in North
Oh, cool.
Carolina. She actually starts there this week or next week, I think. And yeah, my kids are fucking brilliant, and it's cool you got to experience that and see that and be around for some of that was going on. And I had to be a little careful, and I will say that back then, thankfully, by that time I was sober from alcohol and everything else. I really wasn't much of a drug guy, but I was able to share that with them, and those are experiences that you can't really get back. And in 2015, when Rush did their final shows as a band, they played Philly at the Wells Fargo, and I wasn't going to go because I didn't really know for sure if they were done. I'd heard some rumors, but it wasn't concrete for R40. And a guy I used to know, well, I played with his brother in Storm, Eric Fry, Bill Fry. I played bass with him a couple times and auditioned for a band or two, and he was my brother's age, about 4 or 5 years younger than me, and he came into a place I was working. He's like, "Hey man, did you hear Rush is coming?" And we got talking. He came in a couple times after that. He's like, "Dude, we're going to see Rush in Philly." I'm like, "Bro, I can't really afford it right now. Money was very tight for me after some crazy stuff happened." And he's like, "Dude, you gotta go. You gotta go." Another day or two after that, he shows up and he's like, "Hey man, here." I'm like, "What is that?" He's like, "It's your ticket for Rush." I'm like, "What? Dude, what?" He's like, "Dude, I found great seats, 16th row floor. You're going. You can pay me when you have the money. Don't worry about it. Just pay me a little bit each week or whatever." I'm like, "What the Okay." I said, "Well, I really want my kid to go, my oldest kid." And he's like, "Well, sorry, I only have 3 tickets." The night before the show, I was on a website called Rush is a Band, and I amazingly found a ticket for less than our ticket, and it was actually even maybe a better seat, and I got to go experience that with my oldest daughter, and it was mind blowing, man. It was just mind blowing, and that was the bookend on my Rush career from February of 1980 to June of 2015, and I've sometimes I think I'm a little hyperbolic in how many times I thought I saw them because I don't have my ticket stubs any longer because of something. And I think I've seen them. I used to say 56. I think it's like in the high 40s, like 46 or 48, when I actually sat down and started marking each tour and how many gigs I went to.
I'd
But
classify that as too many to count.
that's a lot. It's a lot. Like Porcupine Tree, I saw him 53 times. I know for a fact there's nobody in this country that beats me in that. When they were an ongoing concern, nobody saw him more times than me. And you were at a lot of those shows, so I know you're up in the probably 30s or somewhere. But and John's way up there too. And I know the only guy that I know that beats me out is Simon, the guy that did Carbon Nation, because he was there in the very beginning. But yeah, man, like so. Yeah,
Our
I don't know if I shot my wad on music yet here or what. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just, I can't understate or overstate rather the importance of live music and playing an instrument, and the community of people I've met through music has been in my life, man, because it's meant everything to me,
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good note. I'll ask you this. I mean, I don't, we've covered some of the happier topics. I don't know if you want to talk about your experience of anxiety. And, the
Sure.
reason I ask this is because I, have a bunch of friends who are dealing with it to various extent. I have some personal, experience that's not as acute, and not,
Now, but you
not
told me
something
about it,
necessarily.
what, about a year ago, right?
Yeah,
It was
it's not
about a year
something
ago
that's
you
really
had your first kind of panic attack?
I mean, I don't know when I guess the first time where I really felt like it, but I certainly it does happen occasionally, and I've always had some amount of social anxiety, and again, I wouldn't classify it as more than what most people have, um, but
So you want to know where it started and like when I
yeah, I mean,
recognized
if
it,
you
or?
can, yeah, if you want to talk about a little bit about your history of it,
Okay. First of all, I should caveat everything by saying that what I'm about to say is my experience, strength, and hope, I guess, and my experience with it. And I'm going to probably say some things that may offend's not the right word. May concern some people that are watching, but I need you to understand that what I'm about to say pertains to me specifically, and what I've gone through and how I've gone through it, and how it's affected me. I was born, and they said when I was a kid, I was branded as, what did they use? What was the word? Not high strung. I'm gonna struggle to find the right word here. Oh, damn it. Remember, we didn't have terms like ADD and ADHD and
right.
wound up. I was a wound up kid.
Mm. Well, hold up, Jeff.
To
Your feed dropped for a bit.
say,
Looks like we lost Jeff for a bit.
I'm sorry. Hello. Am I back?
We lost you for a bit.
Okay. It's funny. I was still talking here, and then when I moved the camera, it zoomed. Am I still good?
Yeah, I think you're okay right now. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So we probably lost.
I was saying that when back in the 60s and early 70s, we didn't have terms like ADHD and all these medical terminology words for behavior disorders, right? We had you were a wound up kid, or you were excitable, or you were high strung, things like that, right? And so when I was born in 66. And I think this has a lot to do with it. I was out of the hospital like about 2 months, and I developed spinal meningitis. And I had to go in the hospital, and I was in there for about a month or I would have died. They had to put me on IV antibiotics, and I was a real sick kid. And it affects your nervous system and your brain and all that stuff. And so I think that had something to do with this later development. But when I was a kid and a preteen and everything, I just was wound up a lot. I couldn't sleep easily at night, and I was running around the house late at night when everyone else was trying to get to sleep, and I'd sneak out of my bedroom and all this crazy shit when I was 8, 9 years old. I used to get my brother and bring him over to my room, my little brother, so he'd sleep in the bed with me just because I couldn't sleep. So I'd need somebody to agitate and talk to, right? And I now recognize this as probably early anxiousness, right? But the first anxiety moment I remember distinctly, I was in 5th grade. I was sitting in class, and in Houston, I lived in Houston back then, and we had open classrooms. You didn't have walls between. You had these roller bookcases and roller, drawer things that you open, you keep your books in and things, and they were the walls to the classroom. So you could actually hear other teachers talking, to their classes. And I was sitting there, and I just suddenly started to feel my heart palpitating like super crazy fast, like. And I went up to my teacher and said, "Can I go to the nurse?" And she's like, "What's the matter with you?" I must have turned like blue or something, because she rushed me down to the nurses. I lay down on the bed there. They called my mom, and I started having like tachycardic heart palpitations, like even worse. And I got up and ran out of the school, ran out the front door, and ran into the woods next to the place. And they had to send, a bunch of teachers and principal and faculty came out, and they got me back into the place, into the school. And my mom came and picked me up, and they took me to Sam Houston Medical Center. And I spent 3 nights in there, and they did EKGs and EEGs and imaging tests, which I don't know if they were CAT scans back then or MRIs. I don't really know. I don't remember. But what they came up with was that I had essentially a panic or anxiety attack, because there was nothing functionally or physically wrong with me. And, at that point, it went away, and I didn't really think about it again until maybe like 10th or 11th grade. I started having migraine headaches. And when I get them, I get the visual aura. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is. I'm sure people out there that might be watching will know. You start getting all these jagged lights that interject, and you start missing sequences of visual field. You actually, I could be looking at a sentence, and suddenly the red ball was rolling. I can only see the red buh. And then I can't see the rest because it's all blurry and fuzzed out and weird. So I started getting these, and right away I thought I had a brain tumor, and I definitely was a hypochondriac when I was younger, always worried I was going to die of cancer or brain tumors or whatever. Like my grandmother got cervical cancer when I was in 10th or 11th grade, and of course then I was going to die of cervical cancer. That was actually earlier because I was young. I didn't know that I didn't have a cervix at that point. That's when my mom's like, "You can't die of cervical cancer. You don't have a cervix." I'm like, oh, okay. Well, stomach cancer then, Mom. But I did. I always had this fear of dying. So you'd think I'd want to believe in God, but that's a whole nother show. And I by the time I got to college, I was kind of battling these intermittent anxiety panic episodes, 5, 6, 7 times a year. And generally in between them, I was okay. But then I started having anticipatory anxiety, which is the worst, because you're thinking, is this going to happen? And it wasn't so much like if I went to or speak in front of people, which I don't like. You know, as much as I love talking, dude, I hate speaking, public speaking. Even though I'm probably fucking amazing at it, I hate it. Except
It's
for I
one of the
couldn't use the F.
biggest public or it's one of the biggest common fears is public speaking.
Absolutely. I would struggle at because I really struggle with not using the F word. But anyway, it was other things like going out to the mall alone, or, you know, it wasn't like a social anxiety thing. Actually, socially, I generally was pretty good. It was just a situational anxiety, I would say, and
Sure.
anticipating something happening. And so I ended up in college. I want to say it was my sophomore year, maybe, and I had to do speech, and I was struggling, man. I finally just stopped going and flunked out of the class because I couldn't do it. I ended up retaking it over summer, and because of my medical issues, they allowed me to do it in front of like a class of 5 people as opposed to 50 people or whatever. But I was taking a final in health class. I believe it was my sophomore year, and or might have been my freshman year, and I just was I suddenly was overcome with this intense, overwhelming fear and physical manifestations of the anxiety, where things were moving in slow motion and didn't look real, and things were bizarre and voices didn't sound right. And then I started getting like tunnel vision, and I sat there, and it was one of those old tests that you do the pencil marks in the A or B or C or whatever, and I boom 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 through 50 questions. I already had a solid A in it, and I just didn't care. I fucking just filled it in and was done in like 5 minutes. The teacher looks at me like, what? I'm like, I gotta get out of here, I'm not feeling well. I got in my car. All the way home, I'm like just overwhelmed with fucking panic and fear. And I literally couldn't get out of bed for like a week after that. And finally, my wife, who at the time was my girlfriend, live-in girlfriend, she called my mom, and my mom came up and took me to the doctors. And then a very fateful thing happened. Fateful in a good way, and fateful in an absolutely awful way. I saw my doctor. This is 1993. Yeah, 93. I'm in my junior year of college. Sorry, it was my junior year because I graduated in 94. And remember, I was on the 10-year plan of getting through college. It took me quite a while. But I'm now close to wrapping up in 94. And like, I guess I'm freaking out because, you know, she and I were getting married in 94, and things were getting pretty heavy there. And she's talking about kids because she was a couple of years older than me. And I think like I was just getting freaked out, and I was starting to have these panic attacks more regularly. And my mom takes me to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Oh yeah, you know, you're having panic disorder, and we can help you with that." And they prescribed me a benzodiazepine called clonazepam or Klonopin. And man, the first time I took that stuff, it was like, oh, yes, yes, this is what I wanted. This is what I need. I can do anything now. I don't have that overwhelming fear. I'm not freaking the fuck out. I'm not terrified. I'm not scared to go to sleep. I'm not scared to wake up. I'm not scared to drive here. Not, you know. And that was it. And I took that stuff initially 3 times a day, half a milligram, so 1.5 milligrams a day, for years, man, like 6 years. And somewhere along the line, keep in mind, man, this is 93, so we did not have an internet to jump on and talk to people about things and look things up. And I don't know if I would have anyways, because let's be honest, man, we're taught to trust our doctors. They know best. They go to college. They go to 7 years of college, and then they do residencies, and they do this and they do that. They're way smarter than I am, certainly, on these matters. And so it's okay. You know, if you'd have said to me, "Hey, Jeff, here's a packet of heroin. Don't tell anyone I gave you this," I'd have been like, "What the fuck? Whoa, dude." But no, this was a FDA approved drug, and it, you know, lots of people take it, and it's you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it, man. 6 years into it, I'm going through a divorce. It's 2000. No, I'm sorry. Hold on. Holy shit. 93. I did start to cut back on how much I used. I cut back to 1, and that always seemed to keep me okay. I'd take it at night. It would help me fall asleep. I'd get 5, 6, 7 hours sleep, but I never really got good sleep, REM sleep. I got surface sleep. You never get into REM sleep with benzos. You just can't get there. Your brain can't shut down properly to achieve
So does that mean you didn't really have dreams?
yeah, you don't really dream.
Wow.
You don't. Unless you drink with the benzo. Bad idea, man, because you can fucking die from that. But I did it many, many times. Lots of stories there. Some are pretty harrowing. Never OD'd or anything like that. But one night I drank enough wine and took enough Klonopin that my ex-wife now tried to wake me and couldn't wake me and thought I was dead. And the only way she knew that I was alive, she couldn't even feel my heartbeat. The only way she knew I was alive was to put a mirror under my nose to see the breath come out. She should have probably called an ambulance because I may have actually overdosed that night. But, wow, this is 30, almost 25 years, 30 years ago. So I'm into this stuff now. In 2006, I've been taking it now, what's that, 13 years, right? And usually I just took one, but occasionally if I knew something was going to have me pretty amped up and I was going to drive in New York City or drive in Center City, Philly, or meet a bunch of people to go to a show or something, I might take an extra half just to take the edge off. That's how it was always phrased, take the edge off. And the thing you need to know with benzos is when you first start taking them the first week or two, there's an adjustment period. Yeah, you feel drugged out and sedated because you're sedated. You're shutting off the GABA production in your brain and you're sedating those receptors. Those, I believe they're A alpha receptors. And what happens by taking that stuff for long periods of time is that you for a long period of time is that you basically shut down your brain's natural production of GABA. And GABA, which is GABA, it's gamma butyric amino. No, that S is the last thing. GABA. Anyways, you can look it up. I forget now. I used to know the scientific names. But that GABA is the stuff that your brain creates to naturally be the braking system for your nervous system. So if a kid runs out in front of you and you slam on the brakes and you're GABA floods your brain and it slows you down so that you're not fucking losing it or you have a heart attack or it's the brain's natural braking system chemically. When you shut that down with taking benzos, you literally kind of cauterize the productivity of that chemical and those receptors, and your brain literally becomes an information superhighway of electrical stimulation when you go off of it. It is the most harrowing, terrifying, awful fucking thing that I've ever gone through, and I've gone through it twice. It is evil. In my opinion, these drugs should not ever be a first-line defense against standard anxiety. They're dangerous. They now have a black box warning as of September last year. It might be the year before, I forget, which got black box warnings on drugs basically are saying you're taking this at a high risk to yourself. I want to make it clear, anyone that's watching this, if you are taking benzos, I'm not pointing the finger at you, and I'm not saying don't do it, and I'm not saying you or me. But what I am saying is that my experiences with them have pretty much fucked my life in a lot of ways. And they've fried my fucking brain. Not from a cognitive, although I do have cognitive issues at times, but from I have tons of medical issues as a result of being on those medications for 13 years the first time. And then I tried to cold turkey, and it was the most, I explain it this way. It was as though somebody opened the jaws or gates of hell and shoved me in and said, "So long, sucker, enjoy it." It was the first time I went off them, tried to cold turkey off, I was awake for about 8 days straight. 8 days I didn't sleep a wink. I was so anxious that I literally was crawling out of my fucking skin. The only way I could get any kind of comfort was to take hot showers and then a cold shower. I had moments where I was sweating so profusely that I was soaking the clothes that I was in and would have to change 30 minutes later. And, I couldn't. It was as though the way I also often explain it is, it's as though you were on a dimmer switch at 1 or 2 and suddenly somebody jacks that fucker up to like 85. Every bit of stimulation that's coming at you from life, colors, sounds, smells, pain, fears, worries, physical walking felt like I was walking on cotton candy that was moving as I was walking. I couldn't drive for many, many months. I gotta say, if there's one thing I've done in my life that I wish I had never, ever, ever fucking done, it was take a benzo on a regular basis. I'm not saying they're bad to take periodically. If, for example, you got to go into an operation and they give you a little bit of Valium or Xanax to calm you before, your brain can recover from that very easily, and it does. You can maybe even take them for as much as 2 weeks safely, but beyond that, man, bad stuff, just bad. And I'm trying not to get emotional because I've never thought of suicide more than I thought while I was going through that the first time and then the second time. Because what happened was I foolishly went back after 7 years of feeling good and having a good life. I lost a really killer job, making very good money, was living with a woman that I was desperately and deeply in love with, who suddenly decided I wasn't any good anymore because I was suffering from intense depression and anxiety again after losing that job and not being able to find a job of similar equity to that one. And I really slipped. This is late 2014 into 2015 early. I started slipping into a place that I don't wish on anybody. And I went to the doctor and I said, I got to get control of this. Can I go back on Klonopin for like a month? That's all I needed for like 2 weeks. I'll get right sized. Well, I was saying that, my mouth was saying that, my body was saying that, but my brain wasn't saying that. Because the minute I took one, it was like, oh my God, I totally forgot how fucking awesome this is. I don't have to worry anymore. I don't have to care anymore. I don't have to be frightened anymore. I don't have to fear going to an interview and saying the wrong thing or having a panic attack while I'm talking to somebody. And dude, I've had that happen so many times I couldn't even count the number of times on a dozen hands. Again, anxiety, depression, fear. It's a triangle of awfulness. And one begets the other, begets the other, begets the other. And it's just like when you get into it and you're in that place, you feel trapped, like you're never going to get out. And, as I said, I've had many near misses with regards to suicide. So you probably need to put a trigger warning on this. Okay.
Yeah.
When you post it, this could be triggering for some people. I don't want it to be, but I'm telling you my experience, strength, and hope out of it. And, I'm stealing a line there from AA for that. I still struggle with anxiety. I am now going on 3 years clean from Klonopin. And, today I would have taken a handful of them if I had any access to
I'd
them.
imagine, yeah.
With what's going on with my dad and all the fucking stress I'm under with having to move him and his health and everything and my own health. But I wouldn't have done it. I really wouldn't have. I would have thought about it long and hard, but I wouldn't have actually done it. But that's how powerful the drug is. Those drugs, Xanax, Klonopin, Valium, lorazepam, any PAM or is a benzo, and honestly, it's a dangerous drug. That's not to say they don't have their uses for people that are psychotic or people that are homicidal or violent, then yes, they're necessary. For people that struggle with anxiety attacks or panic attacks, there's a lot of other things you ought to try first and foremost. And Ambien is another thing, a sleep drug. I was on Ambien and fucking Klonopin at the same time. One night, 2016 or something like that, I think it was 2016, I think it was. I was given Ambien, and I was waking up during the night a lot, and because I just had so much stress in the last job I had and with things that were going on in my personal life. And I took 14 fucking Ambien in one night in an 8-hour period. That should have killed me. I should not be talking to you right now. I should have died. When I talked to my neurologist last year about that, they're like, I don't know how you're alive. I definitely created brain damage because of hypoxia, because I probably wasn't breathing properly most of that 48-hour period. And by brain damage, I mean, not but real damage, cellular damage. And so with anxiety, I determined in 2019 that I had to get off this shit. I got off Ambien cold turkey back in January of 18, and I just stopped. And now the worst thing I take is I'll take a Benadryl, which is also dangerous for your brain if you overdo it. I take occasionally for my nerve pain, I will take gabapentin, but not often. And it's very low dose, and it doesn't work on the same receptors and doesn't sedate you. But it's also a drug that you got to be careful with, because you can get really take it too much. Other than that, I don't take anything other than Advil and acetaminophen, Tylenol and naproxen, shit like that. But I will say that the single most devastating, destructive force in my life by far has been anxiety. I have depression, but it's not the depression that I suffer from generally is, I would say it's a little more manic, and it's tied to a situation generally. And it's almost always tied to how high my anxiety level is. And if my anxiety level's super fucking high, then I may fall into somewhat of a depression that is not the I'm going to go kill myself kind. It's more the I can't find the motivation to do much of anything, like get out of bed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's that kind of depression. It's not that I really want to die or kill myself or cut myself or anything. I've never done anything like that. It's more the I'm worthless. I can't do this. I can't. I just can't get up. I can't do anything. I'll lay there for hours and go, I need to do something. All right, I'll get to it in an hour. All right, I'll get to it in 2 hours. And it's brutal, man. It's brutal. I don't take any antidepressants. I have many different kinds for short periods. They always made me feel shittier. And I want to be honest here, man, until recently as an older man, and I am, I'm 56 in March, so it's not like I'm a young cat anymore. But the big problem I had with not anxiety meds, antidepressants was every single one I took made me unable to achieve an orgasm. And that was pretty fucking important to me, especially when I was single, because I didn't want to lose that part of my life. So, and, I was quite the ladies' man. Not really. Well, kind of. But I just couldn't deal with that. So I was like, I'll take the depression over not being able, boom. You know what I'm saying? So, I steered clear of most of them drugs, and I have my thoughts on those as well. So you could say I'm a bit of an anti-pill guy anymore. I probably should have tried weed, but I will tell you that when I had gone a long period of time without having panic attacks from high school until college, a couple years, I smoked weed after a very long time of not smoking weed, and that triggered some anxiety in me big time. I think you had an experience like that, didn't you? Was it you or was it Brian? Maybe it was Brian.
I had an interesting experience. It was both good and bad.
Yeah, if you go into it thinking something weird might happen, like that's why I've never tripped or done shrooms or done acid, because I was convinced I'd never come back to normality. So no matter how much you bribe me money wise, I've been around it. I've been around people that have tripped and laughed their ass off and been, and dudes that have fucking done shrooms and laughed their ass off. I just was like, not for me, man, not for me. Weed, I'm not gonna lie and say I've only smoked it once or twice and I didn't inhale. No, man, I smoked enough, but I was never like a regular user and had long gaps between use. And as you may remember or know, in 2017 to 18, I actually had the med card and I was doing it quite regularly, but it wasn't helping some of the issues. Sometimes I'd have great stoner highs where I was just like, yeah. And others I'd be like, okay, man, I shouldn't have had that last hit, that kind of thing. So I just kind of was like, yeah, it's expensive and I don't think I want to do it. Does that mean I'll never do it again? I don't know, but I'm not seeking it. I haven't had it in 3 years and I'm not really all that, not really looking for it. And like I said, I can drink. Well, I've been drinking the same beer since we started 2.5 hours ago when I got on, and I've still got, you were with me back in my drinking days, dude. Did you ever see me nurse a beer for 2.5 hours?
No, you were you were not a slow drinker.
I was on my 5th or 6th or 8th by that time, going, come on, get the drink another fucking beer. That's who I was then. I'm not that guy anymore. Age has slowed me down and it's right-sized me quite a bit, and I don't really enjoy getting super fucked up anymore. So that's not the thing. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
How
So
I'm
sorry.
I don't know how you can. Like, as I got older, I can't drink much. Like, I'll
No,
have
I
a
get too
beer or
sick,
two,
man. I
and
mean,
that's
I had
it.
one
I can't.
hangover back when I drank that one night with Marty on at the beginning of the month, and dude, I fucking felt hungover for 3 days, and it was awful. And with my other nervous system issues, not worth it, man. So I'm not getting tanked anymore. But to wrap up the anxiety thing, was there anything specific you wanted to ask me
No,
about?
I just wanted you to, like, tell your story, tell your experience. Again, I think
Yeah, I want
just because.
to be very direct with anybody that watches this later. This is how I've coped and how I've dealt, and I still struggle, man. There's days I really do struggle with panic and anxiety attacks that are sometimes they're worse when I'm alone in my room than when I'm out doing things and occupying my mind. And one of the things I found is that the more I can occupy my mind with activity and happenings and things, when you're not internalizing and introspectively analyzing every single moment and every little thing that's going on externally, you don't have time to dwell on it and get freaked out by it and get scared by it and get spooked by it. So since I had COVID 2 months ago, lots changed for me. And, I've had to take over caregiving to my old man who's 81 almost. And I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and our landlord died back in December, and I'm probably reiterating myself, but we have till the end of the month. I got one more week. Next Saturday, I got to be out of here, and I'm doing everything and caregiving, and I'm fucking not gonna lie, man. My anxiety, my stress is pretty intense, but I don't have a choice. I got to do it, man. My only other choice is to run into a fucking car out in the road and let them take me out. And I have children, and I have good friends like you and Rick and other people in my life, Chuck, and people I care about and respect, and that I think care about and respect me, and I can't fold. Now, there's another element we're not going to talk about tonight with my nervous system issue, but if that comes to pass, that I'm not going to make it, well, I have to prepare for that. So there's a real famous saying in Shawshank Redemption. Remember that one? Remember that movie?
Oh, it's for sure. Who doesn't, right?
And I
But
believe it was it Morgan Freeman that says, "Get busy living or get busy dying."
Yeah.
That's the choice we have in life, it's that fucking simple, man. You can choose to dig into your neuroses and the things that can consume you, or you can choose to power through and do your best to rise above, even if it's just hour by hour or day. If it's day by day, great. If it's month by month, perfect. If it's year by year, fucking ace. But if it's hour by hour, nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong with that at all. And when I was in AA, they would say, I'm getting sober one day at a time, man. You look too far beyond that, you're never going to get sober. And I was sober for 14 years. I'm not sober now, but I'm also not a raging drunk. And I never really was. I was a dude that had a serious driving problem with my drinking. And believe me, my bank account will bear that out. And I did some really irresponsible, stupid shit that could have cost their lives. And thank God that didn't happen to me. And I eternally am grateful to whatever power in the cosmos saw to it that didn't happen. I often have this funny thought that, you know me, dude, I have a real morbid sense of humor and gallows sense of humor. I often think the number of times I drove drunk and didn't kill somebody or hit somebody or hurt somebody, and the number of times I got caught, I'm going to get hit by a drunk driver, and that's what's going to happen to me. That's how I'm going to go out. I hope not, but yeah, man. Anxiety, it's a monster. It is a monster that so many people in this world, not just this country, face. But I do think that in America and more of the industrialized Western cultures, we seem to have a bigger problem with it because all of our lives are consumed with material things and money and status and looks and ego and things that maybe you don't quite have in some village in Uzbekistan where you're farming poppies or something, although you're probably smoking poppies, but you get what I'm saying? Like,
for sure. And there's a lot of different factors in my opinion, right? My wife works in the psych field, so I have a little bit of exposure to it. I don't think our mental health approach is great. I mean, I don't think our medical approach is great, right?
fuck no, it's not,
most
dude.
people
You
don't
know
have
what I'm going through right now, man.
don't have the opportunity to get proper care, and that goes double for mental health, right?
It's awful. It's awful.
And when you do get
it really
help,
is.
sometimes maybe it's not the most beneficial, where you're resorting, sometimes medicine is appropriate, but sometimes more difficult things are appropriate, but that's just the easier path and again, it's a path that some companies may push for profit, and again, you have a for-profit industry, so it's tough. I don't have any answers, but I know it certainly could use improvement. So.
I often look and think about the fact that a lot of our GPs and psychiatrists and certain medical doctors are nothing more than legalized drug dealers. And when you thanks, dude. Thanks a lot, Jimmy. Love you, bud. Yeah, it's and look, doctors are overworked. They're overrun by patients. The medical system is fucked in this country to a large extent. When you can go and have,
I don't want to generalize too much, right? Like there's a lot of professionals doing their best, and and sometimes you encounter different types, right? Sometimes you encounter somebody who's really trying hard, and sometimes they're just doing the minimal effort and moving on. It's some healthcare facilities are like factories, right? Next patient.
cattle shoot. What can I script you out for? Cattle shoot. And I do say this, and this is not an indictment of every doctor out there. There are a lot of professionals in the healthcare realm that are highly skilled, and their heart is in the right place, and they are doing the very best that they can to help you with whatever issues and problems, physical, mental, whatever. But there is that reality that, not every doctor that ever came out of med school was an A student. And what happens when a doctor makes a mistake? Generally, they bury their mistakes, and that is
why one of the several reasons I could never be a doctor, right? I'm
Oh,
a
fuck it.
programmer, right? I work with machines. If I fuck up, nobody's gonna die, thank God.
Exactly. Yeah, I do. There's no more stressful. I don't know that you could find a more stressful career than being a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon, or I would never. I could never do that. That's just not. I could never do it. It just if you think I'm an anxious mess now, I would I'd be just not happening. Um,
Yeah, can't
that
imagine.
and bridge painter. I don't want to be a bridge like a Golden Gate bridge painter. No thanks. Um, or a fucking skydiving instructor. There's a couple things I just draw the line at, But yeah, I mean, for me to tie this up in a bow here, I don't want anybody watching this to go, this guy, what an asshole, because he's denigrating people that have to take medication that need it. That very well may be. It's always a personal choice. However, I do know that benzos are highly addicting, and they can be extremely destructive to your brain. And you better know what you're doing when you go into them. And a lot of times, right to know should always be something that you engage in with. Every practice should engage in with their patients, from aspirin to opioids or whatever. We already know with the opioid crisis what a incredibly devastating toll that's taken on this country and worldwide, and how many producers like Purdue, who are out of business now, but how they profited knowing full well that they were killing people and not really caring. The thing I was glad to see about benzos now is it's a black box warning drug. It is not a drug that, in general, most younger, newer doctors now reach for, because they know the danger potentials for addiction and dependence and how difficult it is. A lot of older people that are on it, they just can't take them off of it because it'll be so devastating to them. And, my doctor, my GP, when I went in there last year, I broke down and started crying. And I said, man, please, please, please look at me and remember my face every time someone comes in and says, hey, doc, I'm suffering from anxiety and I can't sleep. Can you give me, a friend of mine said, I could get some Xanax or Klonopin or Valiums or Ambien. And I'm like, please think of me when you reach for that pad and make a determination that this person should get that drug. Please think of me. And if it makes you hesitate for 1 minute with any patient, then I guess it was worth what I've gone through, because I don't want anyone else to suffer this way. My kids, who both struggle with anxiety and depression, will adamantly not touch those drugs because of what they've seen me go through with them. And you know what? That's fine. That's fine by me. If I can save my children the difficulties that I've been through for years. I will tell you, when I first went on the benzo back in 93 or 94, I started to engage in very dangerous, obsessive compulsive patterns of behavior. I'm not going to get into what those are, but they were legal. They were legally dangerous. And for about a 3-month period, I was doing something that I've never done in my life before then, or never since then. And it involved a situation that I actually was arrested for and prosecuted for on a summary violation. And I was mind fucking blown that I had engaged in this activity, because it was a compulsive behavior I started to engage in that I literally couldn't not do. When I walked into a store, I'll just say it, man, I had to lift something. I never stole in my life before then. Never. And I know it was from that fucking drug. And I did it for 7 or 8 months. And every time I did it, I wanted to do it more because of the intense rush I got getting away with it. And I only lifted one particular thing, and it was ridiculous. And now that I look back, it's like, that is so not who the fuck I am. And it's like, who the hell was that guy? Well, it was a guy that was going through drug dependence and what's the word I'm looking for here? adjusting the chemicals in my brain, and I needed something to excite me, I guess. I don't even know what it was, man. It was like I look back and I don't even know who the fuck that guy was. And it's embarrassing, and I'm now telling maybe thousands and thousands of people. I paid the price. You know, I got arrested and had to pay a fine, and it was in the paper, and, you know, it's fucking terrible, man. Just terrible. And, you know, the worst part of it was the day I got arrested, I bought $130 worth of other stuff from Walmart with my kids with me, a 2-year-old and an infant, and I get busted for lifting $30 worth of trading cards, Topps basketball cards. That's all I ever stole. And I got busted for that. And I had to take my kids into a police station because their mom was working. My ex had to go tell her what was happening. And I bought $130 worth of shit. I had money. How insane is that, man? So this is a deep thing here for me to admit publicly like this. But if it helps someone, it's worth it. You know, I'm not, you know me, dude. I don't have a lot of shame. And I'm pretty open. And so, you know, that's what that drug did to me initially. And then the horror show that it put me through years later when I tried to get off of it the first time and did get off of it in about 5 or 6 months. Then the second time when I got off of it, and frankly, I pretty much had to cold turkey. Good fucking God. That was just brutal. It took me about 15 months to feel remotely human again, not entirely normal, but human again. And I have so many nerve issues from it, pain in my feet and hands, neuropathy, and weird spaced feelings in my head from time to time where I feel like I'm falling, and balance issues and stuff. And I know that drug had a lot to do with it in addition to my other neurological problem. And man, it's the one thing that if I could do over in my life, when he pulled those pills out in 1993 or pulled that prescription out and said, yeah, this is the stuff. And by the way, you know, it'll be a little uncomfortable when you get off. I'd been like, fuck you, man. I don't want it. No, I'm good. I'll figure out how to get through this through cognitive behavioral therapy, you know, CBT, or I would have even much more preferred to take an antidepressant that also works on anxiety, and many of them do that, and they're not nearly as devastating to come off of for your brain. They're still rough too, many of them, but you know, Paxil and Prozac and some of those things. And believe me, I've tried many of those different things, and it just, you know, I'll try to do this pretty much drug free now. I'm gonna have to ride them out, man. I'm gonna have to ride out the rough spots and cope with it. And if anyone wants to know how I do that, I think I said it earlier, hour by hour. Some days I get good 4 or 5 days of relief and don't even have to address it. I don't have the anticipatory anxiety I used to have because I work on it. I say, don't think that way. Don't interrupt those intrusive thoughts with something positive or something that takes your mind off it, whether it's music or making a YouTube video or throwing a video on or whatever. Do something, go for a walk, you know, go for a drive. Driving always seems to help me for some weird reason. It's that constant hum of the road and
Well, it
the
keeps
white noise of the
part of your
road.
brain occupied too, in a way.
Yeah, you're occupying your brain with paying attention to things you have to. But yeah, man, if I could never say to you that I'm cured of anxiety and everything's cool and hunky dory and everything's going to be great. Can't say it. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever be cured of it. You don't typically get cured of it. It typically tends to get worse as you get older. Not in everybody, but a lot of people.
And life rarely gets easier, right? It gets usually more difficult. Our society gets more anxiety inducing, you know.
Yeah, it's exactly anxiety causing. And so for anybody that's reaching out for a magic bullet, it's not there. There's a trade-off with the medicines, a lot of them, most of them, a big trade-off, and one that I would suggest you think long and hard about if you value your physical health and your brain's health and your heart's health and lungs health and et cetera, et cetera. And if, you know, alcohol, we all know the inherent somewhat danger of that if you overindulge, and even weed, you know, A lot of people, oh, you can't get addicted to weed. You can. You can get addicted to it psychologically pretty easily. I don't know that you can physically get addicted to it, not really, although I know some people that struggle without it if they don't have it fairly regularly. So it's like anything, man. You know, exercise fiends. I gotta run. No, you don't gotta run. You're not gonna die if you don't go run. No, I gotta run 5 miles and then my legs falling off, but I gotta finish this race or whatever. You know, it's that kind of sex.
I mean,
and
that's also chemical, right? There's, I forget, whether it's, dopamine or whatever it is that exercise produces. I forget.
dopamine.
Yeah. So,
Dopamine. Yep.
I mean,
And endorphins and things like that, and that's a much healthier way to go. But you can overdo that too. It's that quaint little saying, "Everything in moderation," is funny,
that's
but it's
true.
really true
Everything,
because when
except
you
collecting music.
overindulge it, I'm sorry.
Except collecting music.
Well, yeah, okay.
Okay.
You had to bring that up, didn't you? But you know what's funny about that, Serge? In the last 2 years, I've hardly bought any hard copy material stuff or even streaming. You know, I don't like that. My guys, Rick, Brian, Jake, you. There might be one or two other people I'm forgetting, and I apologize. Marty have given me a bunch of albums, several CDs. For the very first time, yesterday and last night, I bought the newest Target edition of Iron Maiden's latest album. It came out, 5 months ago now? I'm just getting it. And I bought the box set for my Marillion deep dive tomorrow for Fugazi because I had to have it for the show. And I really wanted it because it's the only one I didn't get. All my others are signed by Fish, but that one isn't. But I got it for like $26, and I got the Jethro Tull box set for $21, like a crazy fucking deal. That's the first music I bought in probably about 2 years. But again, I want to acknowledge Rick, Brian, Jake. Those guys bought me stuff for like my birthday or Christmas. Rick in particular, man, you just can't find a finer fucking guy on the planet, and more giving guy, more generous guy. And you went to what's the place called?
Vintage vinyl.
Vintage vinyl, and we shopped via Instagram, and you bought me a couple of albums and a CD, and it's like, you didn't have to do that. And I know it wasn't like a ton of money, but it was like because they were cutting everything out. But it was like, you didn't have to do that, and you were never like, I'm like, hey, dude, I'll send you money. You're like, dude, stop, man, just stop. And I got good friends, man. I got good friends that I love pretty deeply, and guys that, and girls too, but mainly guys that are my brothers, and I'm great. I got a lot of gratitude in my heart. Doesn't mean I won't be a prick from time to time, because that's just who I am. But I got a lot of gratitude and love for all those guys, and you, and even people I'm not conversing with presently. We'll fix that at some point. But as you said, man, life is a journey that throws you, as you get older, it throws you a lot more shit. And I'm watching my 81-year-old dad now, and his body's failing him, his legs are failing him, he's having incontinence issues, and he's I don't want to say he's dying, but I feel in my gut that he might be soon. And while I don't have a super deep love relationship with my dad, like, hey, Dad, I love you. Hey, son, I love you too. I don't want to see him suffer, and I don't want to see him struggle. And man, dude, it just sucks watching somebody struggle with the fact that they're losing their grip on who they always were most of their life. And I watched my stepsister die of pancreatic cancer at 46 back in 18, and it was the most heartbreaking thing to watch. She had a daughter that was in 8th grade and one in 10th grade, and it was just like, who's making this decision, man? Who is fucking making this decision? Because she was a good human being, all to the core. You want to come get somebody, come get me, because I'm not always good all the time. Just, that's the bargain I was making with a thing this nebulous thing that I don't even believe in 99.9% of the time. And I was angry, man. I mean, you know, I see that. I see so much suffering in this world, man. It's just,
Man,
it's brutal. And
it's hard to witness
I've,
that. You know,
it's hard, man. And
for
you know,
anybody who has even a bit of empathy, you know, it's.
oh, absolutely. And, you know, I could be faulted occasionally for not having enough empathy, but, you know, it's something I constantly work on. It's a work in progress. You know, there are times where, you know, I see something that somebody I'm not particularly keen of goes through, and I'm like, fuck you, you deserve that, you know. We won't name names, Trump, but you know, guys like that, you know, who just pit people like that. And yet, having had my own struggles through life and pain that I've endured, both physical, mental, and emotional, and watching other people with even far greater problems than me, man, it sometimes seems pretty pointless, doesn't it? You know, kind of. But then you have a child like you did last year, and you become. It changes your dynamic. Not always, not every minute, all the time, but it changes the dynamic of how you look at things, and you're like, "Wow, this is an incredible moment. It really can't get any better than this, right?" Um, and I have two beautiful children, and I, you know, they've kept me here a lot of time, a lot of the times when I didn't think I wanted to be here anymore. And that's heavy shit to say here. And again, you know, put a trigger warning up on here about what we get into. But you know, this is real life. This is real shit. And a lot of people, I think a lot more people go through what some of the things we've talked about here in the last half of this 2 hour plus deal than don't. And if you're lucky enough to be born with all the money in the world and all the privilege and the perfect health and all that stuff, man, congratulations. Congratulations. But most of us are just trying to get from Monday to Monday a lot of days. And, you know, it's the little things, the little victories along the way that make you gracious or gives you gratitude and make you grateful for this thing that we call life. And you know, when I get ugly, I have to struggle to remind myself of that, man. I really do. But there is a lot of beauty in it, whether it's all the stuff we talked about in the first half of the program, you know, with the music and the meeting people and the friendships and the love and camaraderie and giving and create, you know, putting a smile on somebody's face. There's a whole lot of ugliness in this world, and I know I engage in it way too often, but man, everybody should make the effort to be kinder and to be more empathetic and to care. But it's tough. It's tough. Life is a grind sometimes, and or life is not black and whites. It's way more grays than it ever is black and whites, and that's a tough thing to deal with day after day after day. You know, I mean, it's tough to sometimes find the motivation to be kind and be good and be a decent person. You know, and it's tough. So,
We'll see.
all right, I think I bored you to tears at this point. Where we get, we're almost in at 2:30. You want to wrap here? Or do you got one last? Anybody have any questions in the chat, or did everybody bail?
No, we it's funny. The last half hour had a few more people join.
Does anybody have any questions they want to ask me personally? I mean, fire away. We'll do another. If you do, you know, I'll try to answer anything that you want to answer. I won't talk about lovers and wives and, well, wife and my condition. I don't want to get into that because I do still harbor some ugliness there, to be honest with you. But pretty much anything else, I'm pretty open about.
But I appreciate your sharing your story. I think those, you know, I think it's something a lot of people can relate to. You know, I think in the age of social media, you know, we project a certain picture of ours that's not necessarily reflective of everything that's going on. You know, some people share more than others. You know, or you know, it's hard to share some of the stuff.
Yeah, I've been accused of being.
Sometimes you know you just want to focus on the positive stuff. But I think it's important to talk
I've been
about.
accused of being a
You know,
TMI guy, but you know, my story is always one that I'm a detail oriented person, so it's hard for me to just tell a linear story that is the bullet points. I usually got to get deep down into the dirt, and that's why it's my story. I think that it's who I am, so I'm not gonna. The one thing I think you could probably say about me, Serge, and I'm going to ask you a question. Knowing me as long as you have and knowing who I am and can be, do you know many people who are just fucking real like I am? Do you know what I mean?
maybe not closely. You know, there's there's people you know closely, and then there's people you know, but you know,
And by that, basically what I mean there is that you get me warts and all. You get the good stuff, you get the shitty stuff, and I don't try to hide that stuff.
You've definitely always been that way, and again, I do appreciate that. I to me, it's easier to connect with people like that. You know,
well, some people are intimidated by that.
I have a really difficult time of kind of putting up, you know, a layer.
You're more reserved. You're definitely more reserved, and you're definitely more introspective. I'm pretty open and out there. If I know you, I'm not just gonna walk up to some dude on the sidewalk and go, "Hey, man, check it out." You know, I mean that's not me. But because he probably doesn't give a fuck anyways. But
hey,
yeah,
Jimmy,
I'm just.
I tried. It was actually we're gonna try to get a laptop setup going, but didn't have a chance to do that in time.
No, he commented earlier that my camera looks really good. It's the same thing I've been using, dude. Might just be my signal. I don't know. We are gonna try to work.
Well, you also
out.
actually, you know, you're not laying in bed of hand holding your phone. So that might.
Well, here's the other thing. I have a real light on for a change. Usually, I'm using some type of ambient light source that's soft or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Jimmy, it's the same thing I'm pretty much used for the last couple of just the Alice stream and the first. The only ones I did on the laptop were Opeth, and I think the one before that, I think Skinny Puppy. I think, I think, but no, it's the same. It's the same thing, and hopefully the audio has been good. Somebody can confirm that out there. I appreciate it,
we've avoided most technical issues, which
cool.
I'm thankful for. But yeah, I was going to say,
if anybody has a
photographer, it's all about the lighting.
No, I know. Yeah, I mean, your photos are fucking meticulous, man. You're good.
I'm using one of my photography lights, by the way, for myself.
Wait, you doing what?
I'm using one of my photography lights for myself. So
are you really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get a ring light at some point, but I just until I get to the new place and I know what I'm dealing with internet signal wise, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. But I don't know if anybody has any questions, throw them at me right now, because I don't want to keep Serge on all night. He's a young man that needs his rest.
No, not so much young these days, but my son is young and he's got energy of oh my god.
Bro, here's a little newsflash for you. You're always going to be younger than me, no matter what.
Yeah.
Even when I'm dead, you'll be younger than me until you catch up to me. Because Lord knows I'm probably not going to live to be even my dad's age. But yeah, man, anybody that did tune in tonight, I thank you, and I want to wish you great success, Serge. I think you're going to do a great job with this. I'm really anxiously looking forward to seeing where you go with this and who you bring on. I know some of the players probably, or a few of them anyways. I'm sure I've met them or even been on a stream with one of them probably, I'm sure. I'm glad you decided to do this. And in a weird way, I'm glad you decided to jump into it and not do what the rest of us are doing. Except for Jimmy, because Jimmy does something solely completely different than all of us,
Yeah,
and it's so fucking
that's a
epically
whole
cool.
other, you know,
Yeah.
other level of amazing. Highly
And the
recommend.
irony or the interesting thing is that Jimmy's now delved into the streaming world and had 2 live streams already. The one I only caught the tail end of, and then the other one I was on for about an hour and a half with him the other night. It was great. And he better fucking have me on, because if he doesn't have me on, man, we're done, bud. We're done. Understand me? But you know, it's so cool to see the creative juices flowing from everybody. And you know how much I've appreciated all your input in my thing that I'm doing, and that's why you're on with me a lot. Plus, you like a lot of the bands, the weird bands that I like that a lot of people don't know, or I don't know a lot of people that do know them, but you and I, and so that's super cool. And hopefully, you don't get any hate mail for this one tonight.
I don't think
I'm gonna firebomb your house for having
this
that asshole on. What a dick! But it's been cool, brother. I mean, was there anything you wanted to touch on that you really wanted to hit me with that you might want to touch on quick before we roll? And I'll make it Reader's Digest. I'm just
Well, I
asking
think,
because
yeah, I think we hit like the big notes that I wanted to hit. So, and
awesome, man.
I want to thank you again. I want to thank you for being real with us and sharing. It's not easy to share some of the stuff.
Yeah, bro, no
Again,
problem.
check out
As Chris Farley would say, remember that time at band camp? Remember that time at band camp? Remember that one time at band camp? I want to thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be your first guest. I
Yeah.
know they're going to get better.
Yeah,
and you'll actually be able to talk in your next interview, which is difficult with me on. But I know it was about listening.
I'm pretty good just listening. But
you are,
yeah,
dude. That's another reason why we are very good friends, is because you're able to fucking put up with my nonstop verbal diarrhea, and you appreciate a lot of it usually, sometimes. But yeah, man, I want to thank you. Anybody that tuned in, I saw Rick was in, and Brian was in, and Jimmy. I didn't. Your friend Amy, you said, was it Amy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Amy, thanks for joining us. And is there anybody else out there that we know that I'd missed? That I know.
You hit. I think you hit everybody that I've seen anyway. But yeah, I want to I want to thank all you guys that did join live, and anybody who watches this later on. And I want to thank Jeff.
Don't forget to like and share this video, maybe, or subscribe, or whatever
whatever it is that
I never
people say at the end of videos.
Yeah, I never say that. I'm saying it at the end of yours. I never say it on mine. And I just want to remind everybody here. I'm going to pimp one last time. MetalMadness66 channel, deep dive program. My moniker, or whatever, my handle, or whatever you want to call it, my show is called Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. I generally do at least 2 a month. Sometimes it might just be 1, but sometimes it might be like 3 or 4, like this month. I got one going tomorrow night at 9:00 with Lee Gunnert. I hope I said your name right, Lee. If you see this and I said it wrong, my apologies. On Marillion, the Fish Era, starting at 9:00 tomorrow night on Metal Madness 66. Serge, bro, I love you, man. You know I do. You're my dude, and I just thank you for having me on, dude.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for again encouraging me to do this. I wouldn't do it without you.
I think you're going to be great at doing this, because unfortunately I'm not the greatest at interviewing because I tend to talk too much. So you are the guy to do the interviewing, because that's the whole point, is letting somebody else talk. Whenever I would do interviews with Steven or Devin Townsend or any of these people, Mike or whatever, I'd always have to be saying in my head, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And it's hard for me to do. That's my anxiety coming out a little bit. But yeah, I think you're going to do really well with this. And you got a fertile group of friends outside of in YouTube, but you also have a fertile group of friends outside of YouTube that are very interesting in the various, the goth community and fetish community and stuff like that. And I'm interested to see some of that, because, with me, while I like a lot of goth music, and, you're not going to see me in a corset and, safety pin through my nose. It's just not my
Well,
style.
it's not a requirement.
But then again, You never thought you'd see me with hair down to my
It
tatas,
suits you,
did you?
Jeff. It suits you.
You know what? I had a lot of people say they dig it, and I've been talking to a lady recently that's like, "Oh my God, please!" I told her, I said, I'm going to get my hair cut soon," and she's like, "Oh my God, please don't do that." And I'm like, "No, I'm not getting it cut. I'm getting this frizzy shit that's on the end that hasn't been cut." Do you know the last time I'm going to throw a question at you? I know you're not going to get it, but you figure highly in this. The last time I had a haircut, do you know when it was?
I mean, I'm gonna guess like 3 years ago.
It's the day I came down and met you for Day of Darkness Festival.
Mm. Close enough, you know.
18 years. What was that? No, what
That was
month
20.
was that? Do you remember?
It was like November.
November of 2018, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So almost 4 years now. I've not had a single hair on my head cut. I do need to get in and get my split ends taken care of because they're pretty insane. And when I brush my hair, I don't know if this happens for you. When I brush my hair, it's like I pretty much pull a complete fucking another head of hair off my hair. You know what I mean?
Well, look,
Just all the fucking.
about a month, maybe a couple months ago, I had my first professional haircut in, I don't know, like
Yeah.
a decade.
No
I
shit.
kind of like, all right, I need to go and
Funny last story here. Today, I was super strung out with everything that was going on with my old man, and all the people were coming in and out, nurses and PT people and collaborative care people and all this shit. And after they left, I'm like just sitting there. And my dad goes, "I'm really sorry I'm doing this to you." I'm like, "Dad, don't apologize. Just please listen when I ask you to listen to me and do something that's for your own good. Don't argue with me." And he's like, "I will. I swear I will." I said, "Look, I need to go get a bunch of things done. Are you going to be all right for 2 hours or something?" He said, "Okay, well, where are you going?" I said, "Well, I got to run up here and get my car inspected and blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Yeah, and I think I'm going to run out and get a haircut." And he goes like this. He goes, and I went, "No, no, 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 no. Not a haircut, just some hairs on the end cut. Just relax, bud, relax." Because my dad until the last 6 or 8 months or maybe a year ago was constant, "Why don't you get your goddamn hair cut? You look like a slob. You look like a bum. You look like a blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm 50 fucking 5 years old. If I want to look like a bum, I'm going to look like a bum, man. You know, this is my body, my head, my hair. Chill out. It is not hurting you. I'm not hurting anyone with long hair, okay? And if it's my choice to have it and I decide it's okay to not go into a professional job again in my life, which I've had many of them, which were super stressful and anxiety inducing, then that's how it is. And if I'm happier because of it, what's the problem, man? What's the problem?" But I got him a little excited today, just a little bit. And then he just went, "Okay." He goes, and I knew there's been a change in him in the last couple weeks, trying to deal with this acceptance of his mortality and everything, because I knew right away when he didn't go, he just went, "Okay, you got me." And it was kind of funny. For a moment, we had a good moment there where we both chuckled. And, I mean, I should have just been quiet and come back and hardly had, just had the ends cut off and be like, "I thought you said you were getting a haircut." I did. I got like all of them cut. So funny stuff, man. But again, love you, bud. Thank you so much for having me. And I wish you huge success. And I hope this doesn't mean now you're not going to come on Gas Mask or you're not going to come on our Saturday stream sometime.
Oh no, that doesn't mean I would, but one doesn't preclude the other, so don't worry.
Yeah, we don't want to lose you. We don't want to lose your participation.
Well, when you guys go till like 4 a.m, obviously you're gonna lose me. But
yeah, you can't hang and you're, well, no, I was gonna say you're like one of the youngest guys. You're not, because all those guys you're 45,
44. I think.
When Marty and I are on, or Chuck, we're the three oldest dudes. Ken, when he would come around, but he hasn't been around a long time. He's 50. But Rick and Brian, Jake, Nick, most of the other dudes are younger. So you can go with the old thing. I'll let you roll this time. You at least qualify.
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's funny. Yeah, when we do that shit though, I punish myself and then go, why did I fucking do that? Why did I do that? You know, especially when I fall asleep at 4 a.m. and then wake up at like 8, and I'm like, great. Because I'm not a good guy at waking up and going back to sleep very easily, and that is last thing about meds. That's one of the big time, long lasting damage things with taking benzos. It fucks your sleep up so bad. And I have yet to see that it's ever gone back to normal for me. I don't think it's ever going to go back to normal. And believe you me, man, there is nothing more beautiful and incredible than a deep, good night's sleep.
For sure.
And when you haven't had one in 25 years, I give all the money in the world. I give my CD collection for a week of nights where I got 8 or 10 hours of sleep and woke up feeling rested. I just don't. And that honestly is my opinion is permanent. In my opinion, it's permanent brain damage and neurological damage from the medication changing the sleep architecture of your brain. And that is serious fucking shit, man. So, yeah, enough on that. But I'll let you roll, buddy. Thank you so much. Peace out to everybody out there.
All right. Thanks,
And,
everybody.
Talk to you later, Serge. Good night. Did you